It's Off Exit 10, presented by Capital District Sport and Fitness.
And I didn't have to transition to nothing, but I didn't know how lockers worked. I'm not joking. I didn't know how to work a dial. I was just the first day, every book in my backpack for a week. And my locker mate, Mike, was finally nice enough the one day I came in and he was like, Evan, you don't need to carry every book. I was like, I don't know how to open this damn thing. He opened my locker for me, and finally, I never put the lock back on. Every day, I just kept it open.
But those things are kind of confusing.
They are a little confusing.
Do you remember double whammies and whammies? Was that a thing with you guys?
What's that mean?
What does that mean?
You turn the lock.
That's like a game show, isn't it?
It might be. So when you open the dial, the lock, right, the padlock, you could put it in backwards. And that was supposedly called a whammy. And then there was a way to do it upside down and backwards. So if you hated someone and somehow knew their locker combo, am I wrong? Was this a thing?
This was not a thing.
I fucking love it if you did
Am
this.
I making this up? Did someone just mess with me?
Our locks were built into the locker.
Yeah, so now we
just had penises drawn in the locker. That was
that was classic, man. Did you decorate the inside?
I remember, I don't know if Jordan and Mike remember, but I remember the big giant lockers in high school that were next to you had the small ones where you had two up top, you had on bottom, and then there was one on the end that usually was reserved for faculty.
Yeah.
But my senior year, they let us take a lock and put it on there. So I had one of those big lockers and I decked it. I had posters in there. I was able to keep all my athletic gear in there and whatnot. I was like, this is great. And then the last, I think, quarter of the year, they went in and cut off the locks. And I was like, now I got to use a regular, normal size locker. What am I going to do with all this shit? I have half my house in my locker right now. What am I going to do with this?
What am I going to do with this collection of penises that I've drawn in my locker?
I didn't draw them on my locker. I drew them on other people's lockers.
I'm sure.
No, but I think being part of a club or a sport is so important. Easy transition.
Oh, yeah.
But that's what. So we just moved up here and we're in the Burnt Hill School District. But that's what made me stray away from the Shen District. Is just the size. And when we have kids one day, just you see the tall task that it is for a kid to get into any type of organization, whether it's a sport team or a club, it's tough. And it's just developmentally, I think that's so important for a kid to.
You can get lost in the shuffle fast, I imagine, at a school that size. It's a college campus.
Right.
It's called what it is.
When I went on it, that's how I felt the first time I went there. And then it's funny that you say that, Mike, because there's other parents I feel I've heard say the opposite. They want to put their kid in Shen because they think it's top tier.
Elevated
because there's so many people and because they see, their records or whatever for every sport. And then you look at Burnt Hills though, and they're ranked. We talked to one of our parents from Burnt Hills today. They were ranked number 1 in Section 2 for academics and athletics, and in the top 5 for the state.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how many kids are at the school. It matters the development they get from a young age and the coaching they get throughout the young age and then as they go through high school.
No doubt.
And that's going to be the big difference that you notice. I rarely hear a Burnt Hills kid complain about a coach. Can't say the same about Shen.
Right. Well, I think to your point too, it's how do you want to slice that, because it's huge. It's awesome. If you need other services, you've got to be in that school, right?
Is it if you need services that can benefit you that you can't get other places in terms of special help with classes and other aid, or if you're a top dog, but if you're a middle dog,
I would say if you're a B student in Shen, good luck. You'll just get lost. You'll get lost. It's got to be great at either end of that spectrum. No doubt about it. No doubt.
Yeah, it's tough for kids. We see it from the outside perspective, and it's tough to explain that, and it's tough that some parents don't grasp that. Your kid's struggling just because of that circumstance.
Yeah. Yep.
Nothing they're doing. They're just being themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And that's who they are. But we've shared a lot of kids and clients over the years. We have Evan Marsh on tonight. I'm super excited about this one.
I'm excited, man.
We've been talking and getting together for 3 years, almost
4 years now, 4 years.
Very shortly after we opened, we linked up.
Mm-hmm.
So Evan owns Capital Area Physical Therapy. You guys have 3 locations.
Yep.
Malta, Queensbury, Latham.
You got it.
And we were talking off air before we came on, but all of our interactions over the years, we've had so many.
Showed that. Yeah.
But they're always so quick. We're in the middle of the shuffle of our day and life, and we're touching this patient and that patient. So I'm excited to sit down tonight and
just have a talk, man. This is going to be fun. This is fun.
And Evan said he's heard a lot about me. I've heard a lot about Evan, but this is the first time we've gotten to sit down and like actually meet. And
holy shit, you guys have never met before?
No.
Never. This is it.
But
whoa, I didn't know that.
It felt like I already knew him, so it was like, all right, this is easy. Like,
that's the craziest part. It's we were talking about one of our shared clients and patients, and I was like, I know you because I've talked to Chelsea so much.
Yeah.
Right.
I cleared it with Chelsea.
Yeah, she's already been mentioned.
But Jay, keep Chelsea in.
Yeah, she's okay. She's cool. So it was really fun because I've gotten to know you. I was like, I don't know who this Paul guy is. Who am I talking about? And then sure enough, she tells me all about you, and then I just was like, he's a good guy. Yeah. And also he's got to be here. So he's got to be a good guy because he's here.
Right.
And that's the best part. But yeah, man, this is going to be fun. I'm excited to just have a talk, kind of pick your brain, and have you guys pick mine, and just have a fun time tonight.
Yeah, 100%. So, you started Capital Area, was it right out of college?
No. So
okay.
I worked down in this office down in Coxsackie, and we had an office in Coxsackie. There was an office in Hudson at the time. And I started off in the Coxsackie office of Excel Physical Therapy. It was the last place I did my clinical when I was a student at Ithaca. So I had been there, and I loved the place, loved my old bosses. And I worked there for a while, like 2.5, maybe 3 years, because I opened Capital Area in 2013, so almost 3 years. It was almost like to the date. And over the years, I have nothing bad to say. I didn't leave because of anything negative. I just recognized, I think I can do this myself. So I worked there for a while because of two things. One, I just knew the way that I was going to go into business. I needed to be away from 3 years out of school. You can't treat direct access. You're not allowed to treat someone who just walks in off the block.
What's that mean? Explain
direct
that.
access. So direct access is a cool thing that physical therapy finally gained years ago. New York is slow, like every other thing that they have, to kind of be on the bandwagon. But direct access allows us to see patients without referral for almost every insurance, save Medicare, workers' comp, no fault, stuff like that. But I can see you got CDPHP insurance, you can just come to see me. You don't need a doctor's referral. And it's my job to determine, am I seeing you? Is it safe to see you? And do I need to refer you out? So if I think that there's something more concerning, and then my job is to go through a good evaluation and screening process and then send you off to a doctor. If it's something that I think needs more than I can provide, or if there's maybe any red flags, cardinal signs that kind of pop up, I should be sending you out. But direct access gives me direct access to you. And same thing, you can kind of circumvent the doctor route. So you have to be a couple years away from graduation to be able to do that. And I knew I wanted to open my own business one day. That was something that was always a dream of mine, once I kind of got into the PT route. And then it was just a couple years later, I finally was ready. I had been running of sorts, not quite the director or the manager, but I had been kind of the sole PT in their Hudson office. And that office was growing, and I saw a lot of people, and I talked to a lot of my patients and just kind of picked their brain over the years. And it was I think I'm going to do this. So 3 years out, my business partner Andrew and I were college classmates.
Okay.
So he and I together did this.
That's
and
dope.
it was the only sad part about it was for 18 months behind the scenes. I'm still an employee. I shouldn't say sad, but we had just kept meeting, kind of on the slide. We were these little
There's a lot of similarities there between you and upstate New York is so small, so anybody could do something like this. But between you and your business partner Andrew, and me and my business partner Dan. So Dan's been friends with Andrew and his family his whole life because they're from Mechanicville. Now, I met my business partner Dan in college, and it's a similar thing. So we linked up. We opened here in June, and it went pretty fast once we linked up. But we started talking right after Halloween, so end of October. Here's what I'm thinking. Here's what you're thinking. Kind of getting the same page with our vision for a business, and then for financially on the same page. But it was a lot of behind the scenes. Dan worked at Bent, where he was before, all the way until the end of May, right before we opened. So he's behind the scenes there. I'm driving back from Boston every Friday.
Sure.
Meet with Dan for 3 hours, drive back to Boston to see clients on Saturday. So
Surprises me none.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
Knowing
Mike,
that surprises me zero.
it's all for the goal. It's just...
Yeah.
So you've always known you wanted to own your own business.
I think... Yeah, I think so. I think if I really was honest with myself, I have always been that person who wants to kind of do it a certain way, do it my way, and more importantly, just kind of being a control, but not a control freak. I'm the person who likes to be at the top of sorts, but not not because I have this like I need to be the ruler. I just like to challenge myself, and I think that was the thing I really wanted. I wanted to be able to say I was going to do it a certain way, do it the right way, and just have fun trying something novel. After practicing even for 3 years, it was kind of like I wanted to do something different. I wanted to challenge myself and not just be the best PT, but maybe I wanted to flex a little bit of my business mind, my entrepreneurial side, and that's not something you're ever taught. It's either I think you have it or you don't. You can learn a lot about it, but I don't think it's something that you in school they tell you, or you're going to be an entrepreneur. This is the way you have to go. It's a lot of trial and error. But yeah, we met for about 18 months. It took us to finally find the space, come up with the vision, come up with the goals, come up with the plan, sign a lease, know when it was going to be, get the financials ready, and it was super fun. And so fast forward now almost. And next year will be our 10th year. And
congratulations!
Thanks,
That's
man.
dope.
Thanks.
That's awesome.
And so, fast forward then, and now we'll be on our third office, and there's probably going to be in a short time frame, probably a fourth. So, it's going to be fun. I've had a blast doing it, and that's the best part. Having someone to do it with, even better.
That's really important.
Yeah.
Well, and you got to have those people, because you could do it by yourself, but when you have that second pair of eyes and ears and everything else, you may have an idea and they go, that's not a good one.
No
not
doubt.
a good one.
No doubt.
So like having that person that's not just a yes man too.
100%. 100%.
How I asked Nick and Garrett Bernardo, so the owners of Novice, the same question. How organized were you and Andrew from the start in terms of defining your roles within the business, or did that kind of happen?
Insidiously?
Yeah.
I think in the beginning there was no need to separate, and that was actually probably to our detriment, because everything had to be shared, because we had no idea what we were doing. We just were like, hey, we want to do this, and we learned and we read and we did all the stuff we were supposed to, but to credential with insurance and do all that stuff, it was kind of a shot in the dark, and you had to be present during the working hours, and you couldn't be there every minute of every day. So our business hours are 7 to 7, and we both couldn't be there 12 hours a day all the time. So we shared tasks, but to that same point, we definitely have a delineation of like who does what and how we now run our business. But probably it would have been nice to know what that was right out of the gate, because we probably could have perfected certain things. Some things probably got lost in translation, as you're taking a phone call and you're dealing with it, and the next day I'm out marketing. Right. And all of a sudden Andrew's taking that phone call and trying to pick up the pieces of, trying to figure out how I was going to approach the same thing. And we're definitely two different people, which I think is the biggest benefit, because we're not both this, parallel to each other in every thought. I sometimes am a little bit ambitious and like the idea guy, and I'll present it. I'm going, Andrew, I got this idea. Let's do this. I'm so excited. And he'll be like, okay. And he'll quell me down, and he'll calm me and kind of put me back on the ground, and take my float away.
Yep.
And
pull you down by your feet.
Yeah. he's like, get out of the clouds for a minute.
Come on.
Get out of the clouds. But at the same time, he's very much better like with certain parts of the numbers and kind of the didactic part of what we do. And he's a much more organized in that way. But I think if you even ask my staff, they'll probably tell you that they come to us for different things. And I think that's the organizational part. There's no pure role we take, and I think that's good and probably bad in some ways. I think if you talk to certain people, they'd say, that's not the way to do it, but it's working for us. Right. And so I think that's the best part.
But I think that's part of it. There's no, well, here's the correct recipe, open it up, follow this thing, stir it up, and here's your business.
Yeah.
It's just the world of small business, for sure. It doesn't work like that. I got lucky because before we opened, I worked with Mike Reinold out in Boston.
No doubt.
So he's somebody I picked his brain a ton before I put money into something to make sure at least, I was in the right direction. So he's one to, kind of put me onto roles and making sure that, if you're going to take your life, your time and your money and shove it in this direction, and you're going to do this with somebody else, that you kind of both have the same vision and understand what you are to this entity. And then, Paul, you got to look up the author. The book's called Traction. That's a book I read and helped me solidify a lot of those thoughts in terms of just mapping out. I think this guy's like a business consultant.
Is it Traction, Get a Grip on Your Business?
Yeah.
Gino Wickman?
Yeah, just mapping out systems. So if anybody's a young kid or in business and needs help organizing, that's a good reference.
And we're still, delegating, trying to figure out what role everybody should play behind the scenes in that aspect. And I think in any small business, you're never gonna, especially if you start out with just two people, you're never gonna be able to just pick roles for those two people.
Right.
You're gonna have to be all hands on deck because
Right.
that's what a small business is. And that's
It's a
like,
lot of hats.
So
that's
in-
what we do here.
In that book, they use an analogy, and it's something like this, that if everybody has a seat in the business, you can have two people who are doing the same task, like on their own seat, but two people can't share that seat. So like Dan could be doing this, and that's his role, and I could be doing this, and that's my role, and they're a little bit different, but we both can't have that same exact position. I think I just explained that a little bit wrong, but it's like you can't have the same title. You can have two people that like work under each other to kind of work that, but somebody has to be the
guy.
guy.
No
And somebody
doubt.
has to answer to that guy for those tasks.
And that could be for different each, if we were to think in here, like there could be something that Dan and I go to Mike for that we answer to him for. There could be something that Mike comes to me for and Dan comes to me for, and there could be something that me and Mike go to Dan for. Where like depending on like if it's anything pitching oriented, I'm going Dan
Dan
Jones
over here,
all
yeah.
the way. I'm gonna be like Dan Jones. We need some help. But like most other questions or anything like that, I'm going to go to Mike just because, on the business side of things, like Mike's doing everything back here and
Right.
whatnot, or in his little cave in the office at times. And, but I know he's always doing something that, I, don't want to be doing because I don't like being a computer person. So that's the thing I love about Mike is like he's fine doing all the computer stuff and sitting back in his office.
So I
and-
got to ask you then. Your team has grown, and I think that's like you got to pat yourself on the back sometimes. I think because it's just amazing to watch what you guys have done here. I mean, and you mentioned like it's been a while since we've had a chance to kind of do anything like this, and this is the first time I've seen.
I asked him that,
Oh, wow.
I've seen
Yeah.
the space.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
that's how long it's been since I stepped foot in here. Even
Yeah.
though I still share a lot of people with you. But as you guys grown, you get people. You got Paul, you got everyone else, you got Connor.
Right.
How hard is it to let go of certain tasks? I think that's been, to me, the biggest challenge because you start something, it's your own, it's your little baby, and you grow it. It's everything you want it to be. You nurture it, you love it, you help it become something. You get a team and you think, oh, I'm going to help them direct my vision. They're going to be a part of me. And all of a sudden you grow, you get big, you've got to bring people on, and you don't want to just have people who only work under you because that's not a role they want.
Right.
It's not the role I wanted, and I wanted to have some autonomy to do stuff, and to do that you have to give people a little bit of a leeway. So I'd love to hear from like you both. Like,
Yeah.
how is it letting go? Because I think that's the hardest thing.
That's something.
and Evan becomes the interviewer.
Yes.
Yeah, I got questions.
That's something that was very hard for me at first. I think Dan would agree. It took a lot of just stepping away from any like business mind or business book and just like self-reflection. Like being able to trust people, being confident in the systems we have set up. I think that was the biggest thing. Making sure I just am trusting that my OCD and anxiety that I like naturally have, that I'm able to register that I'm feeling this way because of that.
Right.
It's not because I don't think somebody else can do a task. It's not because I don't think it's going to be done right or timely. It's because I'm anxious.
Yeah.
And I'm a person who wants to fix things and fix them immediately.
Right.
And is letting that go. That was the biggest hurdle for me to allow that to happen. And then secondly, just hiring the right people, the right personalities to be here, because if they can have the best resume in the world, if they're not a good person fit, then it's going to be tough for me to have that trust at least.
Right.
And I think for me being hired here, like we told you beforehand, like I've known Mike since I was 7, 8 years old. So I know a lot of the ins and outs of how like, Mike is anxious and, is like go. I grew up with his dad. He's very, got some similarities to his dad and his work ethic and everything like that. But coming in here, I never felt like Mike looked at me like less. Like he brought me in. He knew like I had like aspirations of potentially having my own space one day and stuff. And like that was one of the things that he talked about right from the get-go. Like, I want to help you be able to do that if that's something you want to do.
That's
And,
huge. That's
we've
huge,
talked
man.
more, and there's been, that focus has maybe changed a little bit with like what I potentially want to do in the future with my own career and whatnot. But in the grand scheme of things, like Mike's always, since the day I came in here and became an employee for Mike, we've been friends forever. I feel like the best word to say is like he empowers us to like be ourselves, but then also like use our knowledge. Like he trusts us to be like, okay, this is what you're gonna do. Like right now, like I'm doing a lot of speed and agility stuff, and like there's countless times Mike comes up to me like, what do you think for this? What do you think for that? And like, you know, looking back on like a year ago when I was here, a year and a half now, when I started, like, you know, the amount of questions I was asking Mike and Dan, just because terminology and everything like that, it's like, you know, it's cool to see now us all collaborate in that kind of way. And
Right.
like, we're all asking each other questions, and I don't feel like I'm the only one asking questions. Not that I was, but like, that's how it felt at times, because, you know, at the beginning, you're like, well, what's this? What's that? Like, oh, okay, that's that. I just called it this before, like when I was like working in New York or whatever. So, Mike definitely does a great job of like empowering us to like do what we're really good at, and then get better at other things as well. So,
Awesome.
Or if I want, like I came to Mike and said, I want to work on speed and agility. He's like, all right, let's do it then.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely something we should do. Got me the lead tap thing. I'm doing that, and you know, it's been a great addition to our kids training. So
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
So did you, because you've scaled a lot, right? Like you say we've scaled 1,500 square feet and 1.5 employees. It's like, it's a manageable scale, like a manageable pace. I mean, you've gone 10 years, 3 locations, which is like a manageable scale, but did you envision that when you
No,
first?
not at all. I think that once I knew I was opening up in Malta, I think I always wanted to live back where I'm from, the Del Mar, Bethlehem area. So I think if I had a long-term vision, like a real long-term, I think I would have always said, I would have had a second one back home, like my second one back home. You know, that's still a vision, but that's probably now going to be, you know, 4, 5, whatever that's going to be. And I never expected this. I never did it. It happened very like naturally, but it happened not by accident. And I don't think I want to say it that way, but it didn't happen because of me. It happened by having the right people around me, and it's kind of what you're talking about here. It's I had good people that I trusted and I brought on, and it just blew up. And it wasn't. I think I'm a really good PT. I'll be honest. I think I'm really good. I don't think I'm the best, and I'm trying to stay kind of humble with that. But there's a lot of PTs. It's just like there's a lot of training centers. You know, how do you grow? It's not. There's a lot of ways to slice a cake, but at the same time, I think that I brought on the right people early on, and all of a sudden in 6 months I went from having just Andrew and I and doing all of the work to we brought on a front staff admin, and then in a month she was full-time, and then we had a part-time PT, and then a full-time PT, and within a year I had another full-time PT. So we doubled our employee base in less than 6 months. And then, you know, fast forward to even a year or two, we were already opening our second clinic. And then we had another PT. We had multiple PTs with us, more admins, front staff, the whole gambit. And it was not an expectation, but the way we tend to grow in both of the spots that we are in now are because one of our staff members or someone else came to us. Our Queensberry one was with an old coworker who Andrew had previously worked with, and she was like, I think I want to open my own space. And we said, well, why don't we help you do that? You know, we kind of acted just as like a mentor, guide, and it was her shop. She ran it herself. And then unfortunately, you know, she's not with us anymore, and that's just, you know, circumstances have changed, but we now have 2 PTs up there that, again, we kind of give them autonomy. Tori Teresi runs that whole thing, and she's doing amazing. So same thing. Our Latham office, when Lisa Bodrati, who was with us for a while, was in that office, she wanted to be closer to home, and we were like, well, we can get you down there. And sure enough, that's kind of how that began. And so that's the way that we've tended to grow. We don't necessarily identify an area and think, how do we get in there?
Right.
It's someone comes to us, one of our employees and staff, and kind of like you talked about, kind of doing your own thing. We said, well, we want to be a part of that with you. We don't want to necessarily lose you because we love having you. And so how do we keep you with us and also give you what you want and guide you? You know, it would be nice to not have to watch people you like go through the same struggle. You know, you hopefully learn a couple things along the way, and that's what Andrew and I think we've done. We've learned some from the mistakes we've made, and we've definitely learned from the good things we've done. So if I want to help my staff grow and they want to open up something, well, I can be that part with them and help them guide and make that transition smoother and more enjoyable. There's a lot of stress in those first few years, and so that's the cool part, and that's how we've grown. So I didn't expect it, but I think the way we've approached it has made it grow faster than expected.
It's all about people. It's like, I also struggled with, I don't know if you ever struggled with this. I would put the clients first to such a high degree that my employees I'd put second. And I don't know when I realized that, but like, it shows in people, and And, I know that Dan's felt it in the past, and that maybe you have. And at some point, probably within the last year and a half, I've been like, this has to switch.
Right.
Because there's no clients if there's not fantastic and happy
Right.
employees. Is that something you ever struggled with, or no?
Yeah, I would say so. I think the way I struggled with it was a little maybe different. I probably had an expectation that everyone was going to treat their patients, their clients, the same way I did. So I necessarily didn't struggle with putting them like an employee second. It was just that I kind of already was like, oh, I'm going to put my patients first because I think you're going to just do great already. Like, I hired you because I like you and I trust that resume and you said all the right things. But I necessarily didn't give them as much guidance, I'd say, in the beginning. So that's probably how I struggled more so than anything. It's just like a little less of direction. And I've learned, to your point, over the last couple of years, I've changed that model completely. It's, hey, I need to figure out ways to educate you on the things you want to be educated on. I can't push an agenda either.
Right.
I can't just pretend that I'm going to be the person you have to model everything after. I have to let you do your thing, but again, kind of create a guide along the way. So the hard part was probably more creating an unrealistic expectation. When you open the door and there's no one else there, you can spend 2 hours with somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the worst and best thing, because that's how we grew, because people were like, oh, I spent a lot of time with these guys, but they come back 2 years later and you're like, I got something different now.
Yeah,
right.
I can't do this the same way.
Well, and to piggyback off of like what Mike and you guys are talking about, for me, I feel like, in a sense, it was more putting work and my clients and everything. Because before I worked for Mike, I was essentially self-employed. I mean, I worked for a gym, but like it was my clients, my schedule. I made everything, and everything is when it came to that. But I would like be hesitant to take that time off that I probably needed, right? Or like even just because I think it reflects my work ethic, or even like not because I don't think Mike's gonna say yes to me asking for a day off, but like when I first especially when I first started working here, it's like I don't want Mike to think like, oh, I don't want to be here type thing. Not that I think he would have thought that, but in my head that's what I'm thinking. So I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna ask for this time off, or I'm not gonna do this. I'm just gonna grind, and then I forget, Mike and I had like a meeting one day, and we both kind of like had the same like reaction, and like it was just like we both need to make sure we make time for like ourselves. Like Mike's like that too. His work ethic is through the roof, and at times it's like you can't separate yourself from work.
Well, that's hard.
But
that's hard.
But we have to, and I think Mike's gotten better at it. I've definitely gotten better at it. Like, but there's times where it's hard because you're here so much, and I also love it. So it's like, if I didn't love it, then that's why it's hard to separate, because I love what I do, and I love helping the kids and giving them, like you were talking about with your employees, giving them that shortcut in life in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
You're giving your employees that want to open an office a shortcut, because like you're going to help them not make the same mistakes that you did, and help them hopefully not have as much stress at the beginning. You know?
Well, that's just it. That's just it. I think it's the work-life balance component is
we were talking about with Connor today.
It's a grind.
Yeah.
It's tough, man.
Well,
It's impossible.
you're a newer dad.
Yeah, I got two in a couple months, and a 9-month-old who's. Yeah, I mean, it's perspective has changed completely. When I first became a dad, it was kind of like, oh, I realize why I want to be home more now, and it was a moment. It changed in an instant. It was kind of like, this is the reason, why I want to be home all the time. And I love my wife to death, and I would want to spend more time with her too. But a kid changes it very differently, and it happened kind of in a maybe some blessing way. I was kind of privileged in a sense of Reagan was born in January of 2020, and then COVID. So, we didn't have the same volume, but at the same time, it was Andrew and I kind of having to figure things out. But the work-life part is hard, because I went from working 60 hours a week of like almost patient time, and I loved it. I loved that part, and that's half the battle. I found a career I loved, a passion I loved, and I followed that passion, and I knew I wanted to be a PT since I was a sophomore in high school. And here I am now, and I feel like I'm an anomaly, because I talk to too many people that's not the path they take. So I love it, and I love being a part of that patient interaction, that relationship building part. I love it. Sometimes probably a fault. You ask any of the people that we work and share together, they'll tell you, I don't take a lunch, and that's probably unhealthy and terrible, but I actually would rather just be with people.
Also,
rock on, man.
Brock, how many hours of sleep do you get a night?
To be honest?
Yeah, be honest with everybody.
4, 5, maybe.
Yeah, when I talk to people, I'm like, the only person that sleeps less than me is Evan Marsh, man.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to create I'm not bragging about it. It's terrible for me, I'm sure, and I'm sure that some healthcare professional would love to be like, let me talk to you and fix you, you poor child. But I somehow manage without it. I think even on having a kid is kind of like, I was lucky to not have to sleep a lot, but yeah, I struggle with that still. I'm not very good at separating myself away from the office. My wife will tell you it's hard. I mean, today, I'll give a prime example, and this is a good, fun thing to be doing, but there are many days when I leave the house on like a Thursday morning at 9 a.m., 8 a.m., 8:30 maybe. I'll wake up at 4, get some work done, maybe 5 o'clock. My kids wake up around 6:30, 7 o'clock. I see them for like an hour or two, and they're in sleep by the time I get home. I mean, that's tough. It's tough. But at the same time, I think my wife and I, we both agreed that it's about creating kind of a lifestyle, and more so a goal. There's a goal in mind that, and a life I want my kids to have. So I'm kind of working on creating that. But I'm not great at this work-life thing. I'm getting better. It's more fun. In COVID, like I was saying earlier, it was kind of a natural segue into like spending time at home and getting away, because there was less to do. There wasn't as much patient interaction to have. But my son has probably put the biggest perspective on it. He had 2 bad hospitalizations, non-COVID related, but just viral stuff. The first time he was in the PICU for like a week and in the hospital for 10 days, and he was borderline, about to, have a trach and do all that, and we couldn't see his face. He was on oxygen, and that was a rough go, and for a while, the doctors kept saying, he's getting worse, he's getting worse, he's getting worse, more oxygen, more meds, more oxygen. And we were like, oh my God, this is what the hell's going on. And I still was, I think for that week I was off, but for the couple of days he was back in the hospital, I still was coming to the office, on the hours that my wife was there, because only one of us could be in the hospital.
How hard is that to be present at work when that's going on?
It's terrible, terrible. The second time he was in the hospital, I'd sleep at the hospital with him. My wife would come in and switch, because again, only one of us could be there at a time because of the rules of it all. So I'd leave and I'd go to work, and I'd come back and I'd go to the hospital. So, to separate from work has always been a struggle of mine. I think it will always be a struggle of mine. And my wife will probably laugh when I say, like, I'm working on separating, because she'll be like, you've been saying that for years. And every goal, I feel like I'm Tom Shelby from like Peaky Blinders. Like, this is the path I'm going to take that's going to get me off of this. If I do this, I'll be able to step away. But all it does is it gives me a more opportunity to do the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So that's the thing I think I struggle with the most. I'm not great at it. I'd like to think I'm getting better. I don't take enough time off, vacations, but at the same time, I think the beauty of it comes in, I really like being around the people I'm around, and I think that's not, I'm not faking it. I'm not trying to brag and say I take the least amount of vacation. I found something I love, and I think that's the best part.
That's so important. I tell kids in here every week that if you want to be successful in life, you're going to have to put in a lot of hours of work. Like, what's the Malcolm Gladwell thing? Like 10,000 hours, some
right?
shit like that. But you better be enjoying what you're doing, because it's not a miserable life if you're trying to climb to the top of something that you don't enjoy.
Yeah. Well, and something my dad said to me, I was young. My dad is a mechanic, or was a mechanic for years. And he told me at a young age, he's like, I never want you to get into this. Like, he didn't, like, I worked for him a little bit when I was like, before I could like legally like work like and whatnot, because you have to get working papers and all that. But like I would do like tires and like oil changes and stuff like that. But he never really like taught me. And you'd think because my dad was a mechanic, I would know a shit ton about cars or be a car person. I don't. I'm driving my car until it dies. All right. But he always told me, he's like, do what you love or have a passion for, because you're going to be doing that for more hours of your life than you're not going to be doing it.
Yeah.
And then I think, yes, the work-life balance is hard because like you said, you love what you do. You love your clients. You care about your clients. We don't look like, yes, we look forward to the weekend to have like a little bit of mental break, but we're not working for the weekend.
No doubt.
Right?
No doubt.
Like, too many people work for the weekend.
Yes.
They go Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 or whatever their job is, and they work for their weekend or they work for their days off, and then they get to their days off and they just do, whatever, you do that.
It's the Sunday scaries. I don't ever want to feel the Sunday scare.
No.
I feel scaries every day. I don't want extra Sunday scaries.
Yeah, I don't get those. I'm my wife, I know, doesn't. She loves her job, but I think again she likes the home life with the kids and the family, and she loves the career she's had. Yeah, enjoy it, bud.
Sorry, does anybody else want any of this? I just emptied this.
I mean, there's
bourbon.
You're good now.
I'm sorry. That's
what are we
not
gonna-
being a good host.
Listen, what are we gonna do with that though? Like that's not, you can't share that.
Yeah. Enjoy it, man.
I'm sorry.
Enjoy it. You deserve it. You deserve
I
it.
appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
Was your mom or your dad like a workaholic? Were you around that growing up?
No, not quite the opposite. My dad and my mom both were, amazing kind of role models in that they showed me what it was, what to put priorities, first. And I think that's the thing they taught me the most, is put priorities first. And my mom, I was one of 4 kids. I was the third of 4. So my mom was a nurse, is a nurse still. She's a nurse at the Bethlehem High School still. So she did kind of like a lot of nursing does. They do a little of this for a while, and then they'd switch if you find your jive, you find something you like. But she did a lot of working in different settings, and then would be home. She was home a lot, but worked all the time. She never was a full stay-at-home mom, but she was a stay-at-home mom for different parts. My dad worked for the state for a long time, and he was a computer manager. He was a 9-to-5 guy, but he was at every baseball game of mine, every basketball game. I never ever saw him miss something that any of the kids had. If my sister had a field hockey game, my brother had a theater event, it was anything. He was there for both of my parents were. But they definitely instilled on us, like, if you commit to something, you do it, and you do it 100%. And they helped all of us along the way. I had a paper route when I was in high school. My dad would wake up with me at 3 a.m. to drive me to Albany to pick up the papers, to do the paper route, because I didn't have a license. The station was in Albany, and so I was delivering papers in my neighborhood in Bethlehem. So we'd pick up the papers, he'd help me fold them and put them in all the plastic, and he only asked me to pay him back gas money. That was it. And he showed me what it was like when you commit to something, you got to do it. The job was wake up at 3 a.m. I was a freshman in high school. So he showed me the ethic I needed to be career oriented, and I think that's what he showed me. That was my parents did, but by no means were they like workaholics. They were always around, and that's kind of the beauty of it. They helped me find the value in other ways, but without necessarily showing me that you had to commit 70 hours a week to be good. It was, you can do a lot in a little bit of time as long as you set your priorities and you work hard in that time that you commit to something.
Essentially, they had that work-life balance that we're looking for.
Yeah, that we're all looking for.
I think we just found where you started to learn how to function with no sleep, this 3 a.m. paper route.
No,
there it is.
No doubt, man.
That's probably also what made you realize, wow, I really want to be a fucking PT and not
a paper route?
not a paper boy.
Absolutely, that was a lesson, man. It was. I would have to go and collect money myself from people.
That's pretty cool, though.
Yeah.
That teaches you a lot. It's scary, probably.
Terrifying. Right. I would rollerblade around the neighborhood and show up to people's doorsteps, and they'd invite me in to their house on rollerblades, and I'd have to be like, "Yeah, you haven't paid in like 4 months," and I'm like a snot-nosed like freshman in high school, and they're like, "Okay, kid, just get out of my house."
Just roll out of here right now.
Get out of
Be
here.
careful down the steps.
Get out of here with your knee pads, elbow pads, and shit. The fuck?
Wow, that's a good story.
Oh, no doubt, man. It was fun. I have a lot of them.
Yeah, man. No,
That's funny. Let me.
Can I? I'm going to tell you. If I mentioned I have stories. There's one story I promised I would tell. My coworkers asked me to tell this story.
Go for it.
And it has nothing to do with anything we've talked about yet. But I'm going to just share it, and you're going to just laugh at me and just kind of roll your eyes.
Let it rip, please.
Let it rip.
So, big baseball fan as a kid, sports-oriented guy. I'm a huge Mets fan now, but as a young kid, I was a Mets fan because that was the first game I went to. So my parents, we didn't have a lot growing up, but we had enough. I never needed for anything, never wanted for anything, but our vacations were never glorious or glamorous. We went to Disney once, but a lot in Virginia Beach once that I remember, but it was a lot of like weekend trips and travel. So one day we end up going to Cooperstown, and you can imagine for a kid who loves baseball, heaven on earth. I was so happy. I show up with a baseball glove. Why, I don't know. Yankees hat, Mets shirt, Umbro nylon shorts, jazzed. I'm a blue-eyed, blonde-haired, like American boy, like as everything that they want a picture of me at that moment at Cooperstown. So we go, and I'm so thrilled and excited that as we get close to the line, this one day they're only letting people through one line, so it's kind of backed up a little bit in the summer. I run away from my family. I hop in a line, and I'm like, yeah, I'm here. So some other kid files behind me, and then my family behind this kid. My mom's like, let this kid go with his group. And I'm like, no, I want to get there first. I want to go in. I want to be faster in the door. So finally my mom and dad are like, come on. So I switch spots with this random kid. I have no idea who he is. And we're going. And this day they have these velvet ropes, a ton of reporters on the side. And my dad is like, Evan, maybe there's a Major League Baseball. Maybe there's a Hall of Famer here. You're going to get to meet one. And I'm like, this is amazing. This is going to be the greatest thing. So we get closer. Every camera starts going on as I get close to the door. Cameras go on. It is amazing. And everyone starts their interviews. The kid in front of me hands his ticket and gets swiped to the side. Doesn't even have a chance to go in. And everyone starts pouring back out, and we're all looking, and every microphone's shoved in front of this kid's face, and we're like, what is happening here? And the guy who was collecting tickets, an old gentleman who was wearing his sport coat, and he puts his hand on my shoulder and goes, son, you are the 1,001st kid into the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Oh.
And I was like, what? My dad and I look up, we're like, what happened? And he goes, oh, that kid gets a lifetime pass to the Hall of Fame, 4 tickets to that year's World Series, the All-Star Game. ESPN's going to follow him around Cooperstown, the Hall of Fame all day and record it. And he gets a couple $1,000 to spend in the gift shop.
Oh.
I would have given my parents a silent treatment for a year.
My day crushed for a little bit, but I'm too young to really care. But all day long, ESPN, we are probably within 20 feet of this kid all day. I can't escape him. He's just glued to me. And so we get there, and my dad is taking it terribly. My dad's crushed.
Fuck this kid.
And so the next morning, I wake up, and my dad, I don't think slept. He's sitting on the couch, blanket on him, watching ESPN. And we turn on the TV, and they play, I don't know who it was, Stuart Scott's, history was made yesterday at Cooperstown when the 1,000,000th kid walked through its, historic doors. And they cut to the kid, and they're asking him a bunch of silly questions, baseball questions. Who's your favorite team? Who's your player? And he doesn't really give an answer. And finally, in the interview that ESPN played, they was like, to be honest, I'm not really a huge baseball fan. I'm a hockey fan. I'm just here with my group for the day. My dad takes the remote, throws it against the bricks in the house, and he looks at me and goes, do you want pancakes? And he just made me the most delicious breakfast. But for a week, I could do anything I wanted with my mom, because my mom was like, I made you switch spots. So I was just I wanted ice cream. Evan, ice cream for breakfast, you get it. It was the craziest thing. So that was a story I was told I had to share with you if I was going to share any story.
That's a fantastic
that's a great story.
1,000,001. So my dad every so often will give me a jab. He'll be like, 1,000,001, Evan. And I'll be like, you gotta be kidding me. This is just a nightmare. So I always said I always should write to Cooperstown and tell them the story and be like, what can you give me?
Right.
What can you give me?
Because I'm actually a baseball
Yeah, because
fan.
I'm still a fan.
I don't even know if this kid even watches baseball anymore.
And you even get Stuart Scott introing you in.
Oh,
It's
oh,
that
man.
was burned right at the end.
Oh, man.
Because he's the GOAT, man.
Yeah.
Oh, no doubt.
Well-
Him and Rich Eisen, those times together with the two of them was the
And then
greatest.
Scott Van Pelt, too.
I love him. I
Scott
love
Van
him.
Pelt and Stuart Scott together was that's why
I miss those funny intros that the commercials they used to make.
They're
Some of the
great.
greatest things I've ever seen.
best.
They're
Boom
great.
shakalaka.
You know what?
That's all I
You know what I
remember.
thought of when you were telling that story? Because I thought you were going to get interviewed early on. I was like, oh,
No.
I'm going to interview Evan as a kid. You ever see the video of the apparently kid? He's at an amusement park.
No, I don't know.
You're-
Maybe.
Paul, pull it up. Put it by the mic. Pull it and play it just quick. We'll kill it if it gets boring. This kid's at an amusement park.
Apparently, kid.
Yeah, apparently kid. And the news reporter, he's probably 5 years old, little chubby kid, freckles.
Ginger?
And yeah, and they ask him, how he's enjoying the park. And he just freezes up, and all he can say is
I love the look of this kid.
Apparently, here, Paul, crank the volume, put it on, let the people hear.
I don't know where our speaker is on this, but we're going to figure this out.
You have to turn let me turn the volumes up in this.
Great, and apparently I've never been on live television before, but apparently sometimes I don't watch I don't watch the news because I'm a kid, and apparently Grandpa just gives me a remote after we watch the Powerball.
Tell me about the ride. What did you think about the ride?
Well, it was great.
I love how he's holding the mic the whole time.
He is.
You're spinning around, and apparently every time you get dizzy,
Yeah.
that's all you do is get
Oh, that's wild, man. That's hysterical.
You could kill
That's
him, but that's the
hysterical.
gist of it.
Yeah, so you thought I was that kid?
I thought Evan was apparently kid for a second.
If I was that kid, that would have been. I think that's a better story.
Listen, I want to meet. This is from 2014, so 8 years from that. I want to interview.
He
this
still
guy.
owns that shirt. Let's be honest.
Definitely, it might still fit.
That's a phenomenal story, man.
That's terrifying, man. It still haunts me. Still haunts me.
1,000,001.
Yeah, I hate that number.
Mike, we're gonna have to just send a message to Evan one day, just 1,000,001.
I'll break my phone. I'll smash it against the wall. I'll
and
just get livid.
then he'll make pancakes.
And then, yeah, I'll text him. You want pancakes?
Yeah,
Look at his client, and be like, "You want some pancakes?"
yeah. But we got to change the day. We got to turn it around.
This episode of Off Exit 10 is brought to you by Anchor and the all-new Anchor Pro, crafted to endure the most high-performance workouts without the high cost and space requirements of a standard cable machine. Named the best portable cable machine by Men's Health Home Gym Awards, Anchor provides the full functionality of a cable machine in one small space-saving unit. Designed with user-friendliness in mind, Anchor can simply be attached to any squat rack or placed on any wall in your home gym using its intuitive sliding track mount. With up to 65 pounds of resistance, Anchor is built for high speed and controlled exercises alike, from cable presses and rows to chops and lifts. The Anchor has been a game changer for us here at CDSF, and now you can enjoy the same professional quality cable machine in your own home gym by heading over to anchortraining.com and using code CDSF10 for 10% off your order today. Get all the benefits of a cable machine without the high cost and installation fees. Enjoy the portable luxury and space-saving performance of Anchor today by going to anchortraining.com and using code CDSF10 at checkout. That's anchortraining.com, promo code CDSF10 for 10% off your order today. Part of our job, though, dealing with people, you have all your hard skills, but you need even better soft skills. Storytelling, listening, empathy, like, even more important.
No doubt, man.
Yeah.
I think that's like the I think when I was listening to the podcast you had with Suarez, I think you talked a little bit about like the relationship building and like kind of you talked about this stuff, the soft skills with him a little bit, maybe in a different way, but it was, I think he talked about like he was, he's like, people walk into my space and I'm in a hoodie and I'm in my jogging pants, and he's like, people look at me a little different, and the way I remember on his podcast he was talking about that day that you guys talked with him, he was like, I was talking to someone about the Yankees and then it's this and that, and you just got to be relatable. I think if you're relatable, the rest of what you do, you have to have that as a base, no doubt about it, but I think you have to have those skills to be able to be better at the good skills, the hard skills you have.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I use in my brain, especially when you get like a new person here that we have like a strategy session with, you got to give a little to get a little, right? Like I'll sit there and I'll tell them, I'm like, before I worked here, I was in New York City, COVID hit, and I had to move back upstate and live with my mom for, 9 months basically. Or I'll tell them, Mike and I have known each other for our entire lives basically. And it's just like opening up to somebody, especially here when we have like kids that like, they may be quiet or just like scared to like talk to like an adult.
Right.
Like, you give them a little bit and get them to laugh a little bit, and then it's like, all right, like this guy's cool. Like,
Absolutely.
I can talk to this guy. I can, open up a little bit. I can tell them a little bit about myself, or, if they're going through something.
Right.
It allows you to be able to be more personal, and then if they are having, issues, whether it's at home, sports, school, whatever it is, like they're more likely to come to you and be like, I'm just fucking exhausted from X, Y, and Z, and it's
You're
like,
a therapist,
dude, I get it.
You're a psychologist.
Yeah.
That's half the job.
Let's have the job. Have you ever done or do you do any therapy?
Myself?
Yeah.
No, never. Again, I never felt I needed it.
But you're so good at that, so it's curious to me, because for me it's like partly I feel like those soft skills come from growing up with like my mom and my grandmother, and then
were they in that world or something? Or?
No, it's just like they're super
Gotcha.
empathetic and kind and loving people, and that's who really they raised me for the majority of my childhood. But also from doing therapy myself and kind of learning about myself and these things, and it just comes naturally. And I'm just curious because you're so fantastic on that side of things.
Having a mom in healthcare, I think having someone in my life that was in that healthcare world, because I think I think it's kind of, you're not taught it, but you have to have it to kind of want to get into healthcare, I think. So I learned a lot from her, and just, I think she's the most angelic human I've ever met. And, she's the sweetest woman in the world. So I think I've learned a lot of like how to just be nice and kind to people. And if you're kind and loving to people, I think that's you'll get a lot in return. And I think, again, it makes you better in whatever other things you want to be better at. But yeah, it's, you play like, I always tell my staff even, I said, no one wants to, my entity, like the PT end of it, no one wants to have to walk through that door. They come into me because something isn't good. Something isn't right. They're feeling hurt. They're limited. They can't move the way they want to. They had surgery because of some traumatic event that happened to them. They never want to have to walk through my doors. And I'm happy to have somewhere that they can come that maybe disarms that a little bit and calms it down. And then I can do my part. I know what my skill set is, and I can intervene the way I know I can. But if I can help make that atmosphere a little softer, a little happier, and it already brings a little bit of a cracking of a smile because they see, like, I dress up as Santa Claus, and I treat patients dressed as Santa Claus.
That's fucking awesome.
I dress up as an elf, a leprechaun. We do Halloween. We have a themed day, and we treat patients dressed up as that. I mean, I take it way too far.
I mean, hey, you got. But if you're gonna do it, go all in.
But people even come back to this day. They'll come in on those days that are past patients just to see me because they know he's going to be dressed as a leprechaun, and how fun is that? And it does. It helps to just bring a smile to the face. Now, not everyone, I'm sure, loves it. I'm sure there are some people who come in and are like, that jackass. But, I can remember the first time I ever did it was at my old job down in Coxsackie. I dressed up as Buddy the Elf.
Oh, that's fantastic. Did you answer the phone?
Well, I
Evan
had
the Elf, what's your favorite
evaluation that day. Again, so we still do this. Like we try our best now to kind of circumvent that and be like, all right, let's try to not get as many. But Evan's dressed up as an absolute lunatic. But my first day, I'm the only person dressed like that. Other people are festive, and I'm dressed as an elf. And a patient, the way that my old office worked, they get brought back into the room before I ever met them. So like the aide or the secretary would bring them back.
And then you got to walk in?
I walk in as Buddy the Elf. And I go, hi, I'm Evan. I swear to God, I'm a physical therapist. That was like my first interaction with this person. And their eyes are giant. They're staring at me. And I'm like, and then they just laughed. And we had a great time. And, we laughed for about 20 minutes. We talked about movies, I think, for our first 20 minutes. And then, we did the PT part. And that was fine. And I'm sure they probably were like, and then they went home and they probably told people about it. And people would come in the next year. I want to see if he's dressed again. And it was just fun. I enjoy it. And that's another thing that brings joy to my job for me. I think that's one of those why I love what I do. It's because I get to do it that way. And my staff gets to play along with it too. They have fun with it. They enjoy it. We have a whole spirit week kind of around the holiday season. But, I think that kind of plays into the whole, when people come in, there's so much more to that why things sometimes manifest, that whole pain part, right? That kind of plays into it pretty well.
Yeah, how much do you put into play or talk to your staff about the pain science and like the biopsychosocial piece to pain? Because pain's a very complex...
it's a beast. A ton. I think that it wasn't something I was as adept to until I was introduced to it by Andrew, my business partner. He had taken like a weekend course, or just in his own kind of search of being the best PT he can be. He found this packet, and it was like a 38-page packet. It was like a working packet that was educational based, and it was the first time I'd ever really used the words pain science. It wasn't something I remember in school. They might have talked about it, but I might have missed it. At the same time, it wasn't like a very congruent, like didactic part. I don't remember a chapter on it. It was nothing that was taught in the way to like learn how to teach how pain changes. You learn about the physiology of it all, but it's become an integral and necessary part of treatment. I think that's the huge thing, and it's the way even you ask questions about it. You have to recognize that patients are so layered in the psychological, the emotional part of it, how they feel, how they react, how they prepare themselves for it. If you have that person who thinks it's going to hurt because that's their experiences have told them that, well, chances are they're going to go into that movement, that thing, that event, nervous, with trepidation, and that's going to bring that threshold of sensitivity, way low, meaning it's not going to take much to trigger something. So you have to learn to circumnavigate that very intimately. So we do that apart, and a lot of it is also in how you present information to patients. You don't want to say, what hurts you. It's like, hey, how are you feeling? What makes you happy? What do you enjoy doing? How do you want to get back to those things? And I think it's a huge part in the language component as a therapist, and hopefully you can help teach patients how to circumnavigate that. But the kind of the psychosomatic part, the biosocial, the psychosocial part is so huge, I think, now in our world, that it's kind of taught us as physical therapists. I'd say we're like half physical, half mental therapists. You have to have that conversation. You don't force it. It's natural. If you're good at how to create that language, and I think that while I watch my staff, I've never taught them formally how. They've kind of always either been adept or they've watched us, the way that we've kind of created that learning environment. Most of the staff has, I think, kind of seen how to do it, and we definitely talk about it as a clinic. Like every month we have big clinic meetings. So you have to. It's an inherent part of the process.
I think you have to. You come out of your undergrad and your grad and your doctorate, and you don't get much of the psychological side and the pain science side. So you're just this biomechanics machine.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm going to fix everybody by strengthening their lower traps and like their rectus abdominis. And then you get into the field and you work with people, and you're like, oh, that didn't work.
Yeah.
And then this biomechanical thing didn't work. And you start to learn this person's been in pain for 15
No doubt.
years, and they're depressed and this and that. And you're like, there's more layers that we need to peel back to help them get to where they need to be.
Yeah, and too many people teach them avoidance, right? It's
Yeah, true.
so many times that's a huge part.
But you see that all the way from MDs
Yeah, I was
and
just gonna say
some
that.
orthos, right? It's like,
Way too often. I don't know how many times patients come in. I was told not to do this for 6 weeks, 4 weeks, and I just have to hold in all of this. That's the worst thing for you. You're here because you want to move. You're here because you want to get better, or you went to that person with hope. You went to that doctor looking for an answer, and the answer that was given to you was, don't do it. Avoid it. I don't know how many times, especially over a certain population, like the over 50 crowd, just get told, it hurts, don't do it.
Well, and
Why do you want to run? Running's the worst for you. Don't
Right.
do it. It's going to kill your knees.
It's
Come on now. That's like the worst thing to tell someone, anybody.
the worst.
that word hope,
Yeah.
that sticks, because you are going to that doctor or whatever, fearing the worst but hoping for the best, right? You're hoping that they're going to tell you something, and I feel like there are too many times where doctors say, don't do that.
Yeah.
I had a client who's, COVID's got me all fucked up. He's 25, we'll just say. He's around 25. He was getting runner's knee, essentially, right? Doctor told him, don't do legs for 2 weeks at the gym.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hold on, time out. I'm like, how about we don't do heavy fucking squats and heavy lunges? How about we do some RDLs and some hip thrusts, because your glutes are probably weak as shit. Why don't we do this kind of stuff? He did that for 2 weeks, went right back into squatting.
Yeah.
He felt great for his workouts. He got a great workout. It's he was down because he's I can't do legs, and I'm trying to bulk up right now, and I need to do legs to bulk up. I'm like, don't worry, we'll do stuff.
Yeah.
And then I'll give you warm-ups that'll help you with hopefully relieve the pain and help you get stronger in those areas. And like you said, that word hope, that's the word I think so many people go into the doctor's office or a PT's office with, and then if it's a good PT or a good doctor, they leave there still with that hope.
Yeah.
If it's a shitty visit, they leave there
defeated.
what am I going to do?
Yeah. I think that's the thing that I would love to see trend differently, and I think that, the way that people come in, it's, if they've been in pain even acutely, that's an easier way to transition, because their body hasn't gone through as much change, and they haven't built all those, interconnections, that network of how they approach it, how they think about it.
I like that you say that, because you have tissue healing, but you have these neural connections and this
No doubt.
myelin that gets thickened in these really bad and fear avoidance
Yeah, well, I mean, that
patterns.
sympathetic system just, crushes it. If you go in and you're constantly in that anxious, oh my God, this is going to hurt, this is going to hurt. Yeah, it changes how you breathe. That apical breathing pattern can actually create even more pain patterns. So even just sometimes intervening in a very subtle way can be just a remedy. But yeah, it changes your physiology. It diminishes that threshold. What used to be pain experiences is now less. So the same threshold that used to create discomfort is very little. So I always kind of give the analogy. It's kind of like if you're a kid and I just throw you in the deep end of a pool and you're terrified, and I take you back out and you're crying, you're panicking, the next time I bring you to a pool, how do you think you're going to react to that pool? If I try to push you into even the shallow end, you're going to freak out, right? Mm-hmm. So just even the thought of that scares you. So how do I, as a therapist, intervene? And when I use this analogy, I'll say, the first day is kind of me. We're going to talk. We're not even going to talk about the pool. We're just going to talk. The second day, we're going to maybe talk a little bit about, water, just kind of get you comfort with it. And then the next day, it's let's just sit at the edge and dip our toes in. Then it's, hey, why don't we just, step on the steps a little bit? And then it's walk around the shallow end and just be there. That's all we have to do. We're not even going to look that way. Don't look at the deep end. Don't even pretend it's not there. And then as you get comfortable and we're just having our time and you're in there, it's kind of hey, look at where you are. You're in the shallow end. And then it's, okay, well, let's just kind of creep towards this deep end where that slant, that slant in the pool goes. It's, let's go up to our belly button. Hey, let's go up to our chest. Let's get into our neck. Hey, look at this. You're in the deep end. Look at where you are now. And that's kind of the analogy I give a lot of times. And that's how, as a therapist, I think, when you talk about pain science and that correlation of that kind of like psychosocial part, that's how you have to approach it. It has to be very, a stepwise approach and subtle and soft and empathetic.
Right.
And I think that's the big thing, because if you just come in like, I'm gonna get you in that deep end in 3 days, that person's gonna be like,
Yeah.
I fucking hate deep ends.
That's the kid right out of school.
Oh,
just
they're gung ho.
gearing-
Yeah. I think all of us were there one day.
Oh,
Yeah,
100%.
all of us were. And then you learn, that's not working.
Right.
So I'm going to back off. And then you kind of find your little way to find that path and get them there. And I think that's the beauty of it, because there's the neurophys part. And you could be the smartest person in the room and not know how to have that conversation. And I think if you don't know how to approach that, you're missing a huge piece to that interaction as a PT, a trainer, an MD even, I don't care what your letters are, as a person who's here there to help someone move better, you're missing a huge part.
But okay, so here's another one of my favorite pieces that I wanted to talk about our working relationship is your really strong connection with doctors, and then almost creating this team between the MD and the physical therapist and us as a personal trainer and a strength coach. And we had a woman say this weekend here how much she loves that she has a doctor and you and us. So if anything pops up, she knows exactly who she can go to, and that all three of us are going to be in touch, and she'll be okay. So we're taking care of the pain science just by having this good team.
100%. I think that connection, you have to, I think, know how to be a part of that approach, and I think that's something that I'm happy to be a part of now. I think it was something that I didn't have in my beginnings of my career. I necessarily didn't know how, or didn't have a network that was as smooth. I didn't know that was as important. I thought, doctor is his role or her role is just to send someone to me, and then I do my part, and we're separate but kind of adjacent, but we never work together, and that was a big mistake, and it was something I just never was educated on and taught, and it was just kind of like a learned lesson of, this has to be a stepwise approach for that patient to feel valued as well, and not just to actually get the best care, but to feel valued. We have to be working together. It's about me hearing your goals and understanding how to get you there, relaying that to a doctor, and having a doctor be on board, and then me being able to dictate and understand how to tell the doctor the right information so that patient feels good, and how that patient can tell me something that the doctor said. And I think if you have that network going well, things smoothing out fast.
Because so many people get lost in our Western medicine system. Do you see that all the time? I feel like your role really helps people not get lost and stay on this right track. But some people just aren't educated, or get poor advice from MD, or don't have a secondary place to go to.
Yeah, I think it's so it's funny. I get asked this even by patients of doesn't it stink that we're in this model? And I say, for certain things, yes. Musculoskeletal stuff, it's not as efficient as I'd like it to be, no doubt. But we don't die because of simple bacterial infections as much anymore. So in some ways, emergent medicine, modern Western medicine, thank goodness we have it. But when it comes to the musculoskeletal pain component of movement, I think that oftentimes we definitely do not approach it, and in probably a lot of layers, even from bad PTs and bad trainers and bad MDs, they treat a symptom and they stop treating a person. And that's how things get lost. So I think that if there is to be a knock on that model, that approach, I think it's just that. It's that way too many times. You go to a doctor, you get 8 minutes to 12 minutes for an eval and 3 to 5 minutes for a follow-up. That's the kind of the corporate structure of it. You get very, and then they see PAs, so things get lost in translation even when you see a MD do a PA, and not that you have to.
I got scheduled with the wrong goddamn doctor.
Yeah, Paul went to the wrong doctor first.
I didn't go. I scheduled with the wrong person. I rescheduled it.
Sorry.
They scheduled me with, do you know Dr. DePretta at Bone and Joint? Well, they scheduled me for a follow-up with Dr. Phelan. And I'm like, so I haven't been seeing him.
Yeah, but you know how many people probably wouldn't even have the recognition to not show up to that appointment? You show up and be like, okay, well, I'm here. I wasted a day. I wasted my time. I wasted
Yes,
my money,
exactly.
my energy.
Right.
You lose faith in a system.
I almost did show up, and then I was like, let me call. Let me call.
But building those relationships has been the most, I think, valuable part of it. I've been very lucky to be in a spot and long enough and have that time to do it, where I've been able to talk to some doctors that I can just text a patient comes to me, like we talked about direct access. A patient comes to me and I'm like, hey, I got a guy who I've been working with for 4 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 weeks, even 2 sessions. I'm not happy with how I'm feeling things. I was hoping maybe, that I'd be able to feel this out. And even though my evaluation showed me it didn't give me that impression that it was said X, I just am not liking what they're telling me, and they're telling me this, so I'm taking them at their word. So can they get in to see you? And I can text a couple doctors off the top of my head, and I can say, hey, can I get someone in? And they don't pull favors for me, but they're like, absolutely, I'll take care of that person. So I can tell my patient, hey, I'm sending you to a guy I know and I trust. And how I know I trust him is because I've worked with him for years and I love his approach. He's not going to just put you through an image and tell you this. He's going to talk to you, he's going to understand, and he has a lot of options available. So I'm not sending you to an orthopedic because you need surgery. I'm sending you to someone I trust. They might have an orthopedic background and they are surgeons, but I'm sending you to my guy who I trust, or my so-and-so, whatever that is, my trainer. I've sent a ton of people to you guys, and for that reason, because I'm like, hey, listen, I'm ready to see that person move. I know what I can fix them with and how I can get them to move comfortably and better, but I also know I have this team with me, so I can send you to my people, and you guys do a fantastic job of relaying that information back to us. And those people come in and they're like, oh, yeah, I saw him text you. You guys talked on the phone in front of me. Or I saw him send an email, or, I'll show them the email that you send me sometimes to kind of almost improve that buy-in and be like, hey, this is what we talk about. Trust this. It's going to work. You're going to be okay. You're in the good hands. And they're like, I've never had anyone do this. I've never had a trainer send an email like that or a message about it. I've never had a patient and a doctor talk, or a PT and a doctor talk that often about me. And I think that's been one of the more valuable, not the most, but the more valuable parts of my time in this area has been building those relationships and getting those doctors. And like I remember during COVID, I was having you guys on almost every month or so, a couple weeks, when I was having those those videos conferences, right? I was including you guys in those because I'm like, if I'm going to bring my team in, I want my team. And my team is more than just my office.
100%. And I appreciate that so much, because now I have a better understanding and a better relationship with all these doctors, so it gives all of us just a better form of communication, which gives better patient trust and better patient and client outcomes.
And the thing that you would talk about too, towards the beginning of what you were saying, is like, you're sending them to that doctor not because you think they need surgery, for that second opinion, right? Like, I feel like too many people go to a doctor, and what that doctor, like, I can use my mom as an example, and she's even said she wished when she had to have her hip replaced a couple years ago, probably like almost 5 years ago now, it might be 5. She was told by the first doctor she wouldn't need her hip replaced for 5 years.
Right.
She needed it replaced in 2. And had she gone to another doctor and gotten a second opinion, they might have said, we're going to do this in a year, so that way you're not in pain. She was in pain for a solid year, where she couldn't walk without a cane. She came down to New York City when I was living down there, and my mom loves going to the city, loves walking around the city, and by the time we left, she was almost in tears, because she just felt like she was a burden to me. And I was like, Mom, I'm fine taking an Uber if we have to take an Uber. I'm fine doing whatever we have to do to get around the city, as long as we're hanging out. But had she gone and got that second opinion, and that's all you're doing. You're not you're not saying you need surgery, you need this. You're like, there's something that I'm not seeing, and I need someone else's eyes on it to help me see what's going on, and then I can they'll send you back here, and we'll get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
And I think that's where too many people, more, I feel like the generation before us, don't seek that second opinion, or don't go, okay, this person told me I can't do this. Well, what if I go ask this person and they tell me I can? Okay, now let me go get a third opinion.
Right.
It's not bad to go get more one opinion, but again, you don't want to overload information either. So, finding that
100%.
that happy medium between.
Too many cooks in the kitchen is a
Problem.
Problem. When
Yes.
when you have somebody come in and you're doing your strategy session, your initial intake, you're like, oh, you got too many cooks in the kitchen,
Yep.
and I don't want to be another cook. That's a tough one.
No doubt. I think it's what I've in those moments, I find it's just most.
Yeah, what do you
appropriate
do? Because I struggle with that.
I'm honestly, I mean, it's nothing novel. I'm wildly honest, and I'll just tell that person, like, hey, listen, what do you want? What do you want me to be a part of right now? Because you've asked this question to 17 people, and you've got 17 different answers. Do you want me to give you a different one? Because I don't think I can. I'm going to give you this answer and that answer only. And I'm not telling you there's not a way that I can be a part of that. But I don't think if you're here for me to just tell you something different, I just can't. I can't tell you, that your need that, if you're looking for me to tell you that you're going to run tomorrow, I don't think I can tell you that. I'm not going to be a part of that for you. I wish I could, and I want to get you there. And this is how, again, I'm going to kind of reiterate the same thing you've heard before. It's going to be this process, and I'm going to be a part of that, and I'm going to help you the way I know how I can help you. But just brutal honesty, I think, is important, and then also just kind of reassuring. It kind of goes back to that kind of almost inhibit pain science kind of thing. If you have seen someone and you're the fifth cook in the kitchen, chances are that person is anxious and scared and nervous about everything, and they want to move. They want that hope, that word we talked about.
Right.
And if you just stop it and are like, hey, listen, you got to go back to that person and listen to them. They're in front of you for a reason. They do want that hope. And so if you're honest about it, that brutal honesty, but in a good, compassionate way, I think you can kind of fix problems that way. I think, I'm seeing a patient right now who just transferred from another PT office. She has been seeing several PTs over the last 18 months. So I'm her fifth PT maybe, but she just transferred care over to me. And her first visit, I heard that, and my first was like, ooh, okay, well, what am I getting into? This is going to be interesting. But we just had a dialogue, and she had said, this is what this PT told me, that I was walking like Frankenstein. This doctor told me that I was never going to run again. This person told me this. And I said, okay, let's all just, and I honestly, usually how I take evals is I have the chart in front of me, and there's a piece of paper, a blank piece, and I'm looking at you, I'm talking, and I'm writing, and I'm just listening to that story, and I'm writing the entire story down, because I want to remember the big parts, the little parts, everything in between. And I remember that patient, I remember this. I closed it, I put it underneath the table, and I just sat like this in front of her, and we talked for the whole time. I did almost a very minimal physical exam, because I didn't have the time. That was, my evals are an hour 15 maybe, and I didn't have the time because we talked the whole time. And by the end of it, she was like, "You're the first person to tell me that I can get to somewhere." And that at that point, being an extra cook was good, because I was I was no longer a sous chef. I was the head chef. But I think it was just that. I think she was looking. I think those people want to hear something hopeful and valuable, and they want to just, I don't think they want you to lie to them about it, but I think they need to hear it sometimes just compassionate, because maybe that's the way they haven't heard it before.
You need to see light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Is what it is. And you brought up being able to do stuff, and I think of some of our Herkimer guys that have had Tommy John surgery. And we already had some of them on, and Packard brought it up about, he had his Tommy John surgery, was very anxious. He loves to work out, loves to lift. He came in here his first day, did his I think it was his first day, right? Did his PT with Pat, and then was hip thrusting 315 pounds, and he felt great. Yeah. And it was like, I see light at the end of the tunnel now. I know I can do things. There's things that are possible, and I think that's what it is. Is you were able to cipher through all the ingredients that all the other cooks in the kitchen threw at her, and you were like, okay, this is what we can do. This is where we can get to, and this is what I want to do to help you get there. Yeah. And you were able to, and by the time that, hour 15 session ended, she was like, wow, I feel a lot better. I feel less anxious, and I feel hope. Yeah. I see the light at the end of the tunnel. She cried at the end of it. We hugged. And we left and we scheduled the next appointment. And the nice part with me is I'm definitely able to be creative with my schedule, and I think that's the beauty of not eating lunch. Sometimes I'm able to fit people in on those hours. I still schedule them, which is stupid at this point. But I'll move my schedule around and be like, hey, listen, I'm going to spend a little bit more time with you. I want to fit you in here because I know of what you've been through, and I need to respect that. And I'm gonna do it this way. And I remember then the second time it was like we went through a bigger, actual assessment part that I needed to go through with her to understand what got you to this place to begin with, physically speaking, because that's where a physical therapist can intervene, is the physical parts and the mental and social parts. But by the end of that,
we started with just education on proper, diaphragmatic breathing, pelvic floor relationship, and just understanding how to do that. And she came in 3 days after that, and we spent probably 45 minutes just talking about it, educating, movement, how that correlates to different postures, standing, sitting, moving, rolling, lying down. And the next day she came in, she's like, I'm feeling better than I have in 6 months. And I'm like, I was like, it's not going to take, a magician to get you better, but if you're willing to kind of go through this kind of sometimes awkward and boring ass process that PT can be, it's not sexy. It's not sexy all the time. It can be. And Instagram sometimes fakes people into thinking it's going to be super sexy and fun. And,
100%.
and you guys probably see that more than I do because the Instagram models.
Yeah. I try to stay out of that world.
I try. You try, and I saw.
It's enticing.
There was a post I saw the other day from a guy that I really like because he'll post something and then he'll have him in front of the video that's playing behind him, and you just see his face like this is stupid, but he had a really good caption. It was like, you'll never look like your favorite fitness influencer because your favorite fitness influencer doesn't look like that.
Right.
And I was like, that's the perfect post because all of those captions and pictures and videos are that one. They may have taken 50 pictures to get that one perfect picture. Whereas somebody that's more authentic or whatever, they're gonna take videos of their failures and whatnot and just be like, all right, well, this is what happened. I fucked up today, but whatever.
Yeah.
That's it. Your story with that woman reminds me of a story I had, a girl I had in the city who just to make it a shorter story, but she came in for a strategy session to my office, literally told me she had a nightmare the night before because she is terrified of the gym. We spent the entire time talking. She was with me until I left New York. She even did a little bit of online training, virtual training with me, but or not virtual, she just did online programming, but she needs that one-on-one attention,
Sure.
in person. And I told her, I was like, if you need that, I know somebody down there, that'll be good for you, whatever. But in the grand scheme, she came in, we talked, we didn't do any assessment, at all, any physical assessment. I just calmed her nerves, got her comfortable with what we were gonna do, and she was with me for 2.5 years basically. And we still talk here and there. I make sure she's doing good. She broke her foot shortly after I tore my Achilles, and she's like, how did you do all this with a walking boot, da da da? And I was like, don't worry, you'll get through it. And again, calming her nerves and giving her hope and light at the end of the tunnel type thing. And she was just on vacation, living her best life. So
well, I think you said it, and I think I've heard you say it before. Be your authentic self. Be honest, be true to who you are, and stay within that role that you can do. Don't step outside of that. Don't pretend to be something you can't. You can't be. And I think that's the other thing that kind of is I think an important part of all of our roles together. It's not to, say I'm going to get you to somewhere where I don't know how to get you. And that's why I love this team approach. Having you guys has been invaluable because what I don't have is space like this. I don't have the weights like this. So when I know I can get someone moving, I can't pretend to be I'm going to get you somewhere. I don't have those tools, and I'm not a trainer. You guys program way differently than me, but invaluably better than me in a lot of that stuff because I don't do it. And so if I want someone to get to a goal and I'm honest with myself about them getting there, well, then the best part is I need to say I got a guy, I got a team, I got these people who I'm going to send you to because they're going to get you there.
But it runs on a spectrum because anytime somebody comes from you to us, they're doing their foam rolling and then they start doing warm up and they go, I worked in this movement with Evan. That's what Evan told me. I did this exercise with Evan last week. It's all a continuum.
No doubt.
We don't have the time to spend, unless somebody's paying us for one-on-one personal training, we don't have the time to spend an hour 15 one-on-one with you going through these small hit movements, but you need them. We can do other exercises to make you work out hard while you're working on those more isolated things.
And I think it allows us to work off of one another's skill sets so much better because as I start to get to a point where I'm like, hey, you're moving fantastically. You want to get to this goal? I'm so happy to have been here in this part of you.
Right.
I'm going to send you to my people, and they're going to get you to where you want to go. And then we're all part of that same group, and they're going to talk to me, and I'm going to talk to them, and you're going to talk to me, and you're going to talk to them, and we're going to get you there together. But you need them now. You need them more than you need me.
Right.
And I think that's the beauty of this team kind of approach that I've been happy to be a part of. And it's it's big and it's inclusive of a lot of different people. But I think without that, you're as a PT, maybe as a trainer, if you think you can do it all, you're probably new out of school, and you're enthusiastic, and that's huge. But you'll have that growing curve, that learning curve, those growing pains of you're going to find that it's going to be a team, and I think our roles over the years as trainers and PTs, they've definitely overlapped more and more.
Yeah, I think since the start of the internet, and you have the really early, you probably have the 2005 to 2008 days, where you have the Eric Cressy and the Mike Robertson and the Mike Reynolds, the Tony Gentilcores, who had these blogs online in those early internet days, and now they start sharing ideas of physical therapy blended with powerlifting.
Yeah.
And then you have Mike Boyle, who came from Springfield College. He coins the term functional training, but now he builds this whole system and giant business and successful gym on blending physical therapy with quality movement, and him and Gray Cook and strength training principles.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of like boomed into what we all do today.
Watching you guys do your thing here, I think it's been, it took me a minute to kind of appreciate just how having someone like you guys in the area that I was like, oh my God, these guys are smart. They know what they're doing. This is amazing. I can't wait to, come in and send my people, and just kind of hear from them how they're doing and watch it happen in real time. Because it isn't so much that I have my role and you have yours and they have to be black and white different. It's a lot of gray, and that's the beauty of it, because I watched you guys do stuff, and I trained here for a while, and I was getting finally back out of some of my health issues, and I was like, oh my God, you guys, I watch you do stuff that's helped me in PT, as an actual practitioner. And I didn't learn that from a PT. I didn't learn that from a continuing ed course. I learned that from some amazing group of trainers down 2 exits south of me. And that's the best part, is having someone who genuinely cares about the profession, wants to be better. And I learn as much from you guys as anybody. And I think that's the best part. That's a cool part, I think, of where we are in time too, is I think we get to share a lot of ideas and be a part of something bigger than ourselves. And if you're humble enough to recognize that other people have a lot of amazing skill sets,
right,
and information and ideas, and you want to be a part of being better, it's limitless. It's limitless, so you can connect to.
But you have to drop your ego.
Check it at the door.
Check it at the door, please, because you can't achieve your ultimate level of happiness in your career or your personal life, but let's just use your career as an example. If you have an ego, I don't have an eagle.
I was going to say, I wish I had an eagle, man. Let's be honest. That would be cool as hell.
That'd be awesome.
When I was young, I wanted to be the best trainer, the best coach. I only want you to go to me. You only see me as the best. But fuck that, man. I want to have a fantastic group of people who are all amazing and all can show off their own strengths and all contribute in their own way, because that makes life way less stressful, way more enjoyable.
And I can sit in my chair that you said earlier. You can sit in your chair and do your part in that chair better.
Yeah.
You're not sharing chairs.
Thank you for making that a better example, because that's the fucking worst thing.
Well, I think that's it. If you have a lot of people at that table, who can all do their part and be a part of a project,
right,
well,
it's going to get done more efficiently and better, because you're going to come in with a skill set that I might not, and I'm going to come in with something different, and we're all going to be part of the MD world, whoever it is. And, you can paint a picture that way a little better.
When you talk about the skill set thing, and, going back to when we had, Pat on, and he talked about with some of his younger PTs and saying when we send somebody to CDSF, understand that they know more about programming strength training than you do.
Yeah.
So you tell them what this person needs to work on, and that's all you have to tell them. And they're going to be able to do that. Now, if there's specific exercises that maybe you want them to do, just let them know that. But at the same time, for the most part, they're going to be able to know those are the exercises they need to do anyway, because they've been doing that. And then for me, when I'm in here, if I get somebody that's got a weird pain or injury or something like that, and I'm just I'm not going to try to sit here and act like I know what the hell I'm talking about. I'll call Mike over, or we talked about it earlier, the luxury of having Connor here is awesome, because you get somebody in here that is coming off an injury or something, and they're this feels kind of weird, I can be Connor, I need you, come over here, because he's going to get them a faster answer, get them on the right track faster, and then I can go to the person that maybe he was helping and just keep doing my job. And they don't feel like any level of care was less. They feel probably that they got a better level of care, because now I went to somebody that has the answer or has a better answer. And that's whether we go to you, we go to Connor when he's in here, or anybody else, a doctor. We use Dr. Ahmad for all of our Tommy John stuff. So like you said, it's understanding that everybody's gonna have a different skill set that you can utilize and go from there.
Yep.
Oh, you have an update available, just so you know.
I'm gonna keep talking. I'm gonna grab one of these. Go ahead.
Crack it open. I was waiting for you to do it.
I've been looking. I was I'm gonna send those all home with Evan. But yeah, let's put one down right now, please.
Sound of happiness. Yep, there it is.
Beautiful.
So you're an IPA guy? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
Come join the dark side, man.
That is the
Beer,
dark side.
I've never been. Jordan, you drink beer, right? I can't do it. When I was, like younger, and then you have a beer, and I'm like, this, I just feel terrible. I'm like, oh, I'm just a lightweight. I'm new to drinking beer. Like, I'll get over it. And I just never got over it. I just feel terrible every time I have beer.
Me and a couple of my coworkers after work today, we were talking, and you can tell me if there's anything off limits we're not supposed to talk about. But we were talking about our first beers ever in our younger years.
Definitely not off limits.
And we were like, what was your first beer? And I was pulling up pictures of beers they had never even heard of. I was like, there's Red Dog, and and I was just showing them pictures like, what the hell is this? And I was like, at the time, I thought it was great because I was stupid, young, and I had no reference point. And now I look back and I'm like, God damn it! Like, thank God that this exists now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Educated yourself.
Oh, thank God, man.
Shout out Troy Conklin. He gave me my first beer, Jay.
Okay.
I think it was a Shock Top, which is like a good first beer to have.
That's actually not a bad first beer to have.
Kudos to you.
So shout out Troy, but I'm not.
Was it
drinking
cold
beer.
or warm? And was it like in the bushes, hidden away from your parents, and you had to have it at night?
No, well, I painted for my dad, so I painted with I was, like in high school painting with all college kids during the summer. So I'm just around these dudes all day. We come to work fucking hungover and smelling like booze, and so yeah, I
and
got
everything else.
Yeah, so everything else. So yeah, I got a lot of my life education from these guys, man.
I think mine would have been probably the, given to a friend of mine from his older brother, and so we hid it in the bushes, like on the near like the waterline trails that like the kids would hang out at. And at 9 at night in the summer when we're playing our outdoor games, we'd be like, let's go grab a beer. And it's 72 degrees outside. It's a warm ass beer, and we'd be like, oh man, this is the life. And I'm like, God, we're dumb as hell if I look back on it all.
Oh, that's too funny, man. Yeah, think back to those days. Even like college, like we had security at the front desk.
Well, you were at Springfield, so
I was at Springfield. You had security at the front desk, and they'd check in bags, like whenever you're coming in past like 9 p.m.
Okay.
But every dorm had, right? Like shout out the freshmen in Massasoit next year. At least when it's going back 12 years ago. But yeah, basement. There's like a broken window. You just pop it open. You like
shove
slide.
it down.
Yeah, all the spots.
Yeah, we definitely snuck in a lot of beers into Cheney Hall. I don't even know if that's called that at Cortland anymore. That's what I was going to bring up earlier, but I didn't want to bring it up.
Where were you? Ithaca.
Yeah.
Oh, boys, I'm going to step aside. Like,
Man, you ever
this out
feel
right
how
here.
your neck just tenses out of nowhere?
That's a huge rivalry, right?
It's
My wife is a Red Dragon.
Oh, love her. Love her. We should have had her on.
What's it called?
Wait, is she a real Red Dragon, like a Cortland? She's not an Oneana Red Dragon like Connor,
She's
right?
Cortland.
Okay, good. Because Oneana is like the fake Red Dragons.
Yeah.
Like,
Come on.
They don't count.
They don't exist. They're not
What's
real.
it called? Cortico, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
Cortico. That jug is the best thing in the world, man.
Yeah.
I wish I could tell you everything about every game.
All right, let me ask you. I'm going to the game this year.
Oh, I want to. My wife and I want to go.
Yeah.
But
it's at Yankee Stadium. I mean, you got kids and all
Stadium,
that,
yeah.
so it's a little different.
I wish I would. Like that one is so fun to watch. Like you want to talk about something on like my Facebook feed that blows up. Is that day? It is everyone and their mother from like years past who I'm like, I forgot about this person, but they're posting something.
Yeah.
And that one at what's the Giant Stadium called? MetLife. They did the first one at MetLife, and then now it's Yankee Stadium. Like, I mean, these games are huge.
Yeah.
But it's the
biggest little
game in the country. It's the only Division III that makes the Vegas betting line.
I was just going to say that. It's the only one that,
That's
besides
incredible.
the championship game.
Right.
Championship Division III game. It's the only, like, regular season game that's on Vegas betting lines. Yeah, like, honestly, like, Cortland, Ithaca, like, rivalry, especially, like, football, it's like Duke UNC for D3.
Dude, it's fun.
Like,
it's
like,
so wild.
Cortland hates Ithaca. Literally,
What was the best chant?
I had a
Do you
shirt
remember
that
any of those?
said "fuck Ithaca," and one of the letters was literally an image of a sexual position. Like, it was hilarious. I was like, this is the best shirt ever. I'm buying this.
Do you remember any of the chants that you guys would do against
Absolutely
us?
not. I was hammered.
My favorite one, and it was, again, the stupid ego of Ithaca kids. It was, it's all right, it's okay. Whenever you guys score a point, field goal, extra point, it's all right, it's okay, you're going to work for us one day. That was the greatest chant that I remember when I happened. I was
Do
like,
you know
whoa.
you got two Cortland alums in here?
Yes, you do.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're outnumbered. Sorry.
But
I got to keep my head on a swivel here.
so I went to Springfield, neither. But I didn't realize how big Cortico was until after college. So our friend TJ.
I was just gonna bring up TJ.
Our friend TJ moved to North Carolina.
I went to college. Like, he was my freshman roommate. We went to high school together. One of my best friends growing up. So
I don't know if he listens, but shout out TJ. He's a good friend. He went to Cortland, so he hosted a Cortica viewing party. They rented out a bar in North Carolina. We flew down for it, and the bar was full.
That's wild. That's so fun, man.
Cortland and Ithaca alums in North Carolina.
Full rented out bar.
I think everywhere you
the
go.
game on all the I'm sure that's in every city.
Like probably within the Northeast for sure, probably on the East Coast.
Yeah.
I think that's huge.
That's why I said,
wild.
like, it's like the Division III version of like Duke UNC or like LSU Bama. Like, that's how even to this day, like, we'll get people, like, kids that come in here from Ithaca, like, they go to Ithaca and I give them shit right away. But that's that give a little, take a little, like, you know, like, me opening up about that and like saying like, yeah, I went to Cortland, and they're like, and I'm like, yeah. Yep, we're gonna have a tough time right now.
It's disarming though. That's the beauty of it, you know, to bring it all back. It's fun when you get to. I mean, heck, you know, what do I really care right now about what the, you know, what?
As long as we win in November at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, you don't care then, right?
I care then. That's when I care.
That's about the only time. But it's fun. I mean, you know, we get to have fun about it, and you get to laugh with someone. You know, I don't know how many of my patients even are, you know, Cortland grads, and you hear that and you just go ooh, and they laugh and we laugh, and it's fun. It makes the enjoyable part of it all.
Yeah.
You know,
like when I first was reading all the stuff that we down here, and I saw that, and I was like, this motherfucker.
I'm surprised you shook my hand when I came.
Listen, you know what? I kind of forgot about it until I reread it again while I was.
I wish I never told you that 1,000,001 story now, because I know I hear it to the end of time.
Now it's gonna be there. It's gonna be there. It's in the back of my head.
I know it is.
That's a fantastic story. When you went to PT school at Ithaca, was it a 7 straight through, or you had to then reapply to PT school after undergrad?
No, we were accepted as going in as a freshman. You were accepted in the doctorate program.
Is that how most are now, or no?
I think no, actually, I don't know how even Sage works. And my business partner is an adjunct professor there, and so we get a ton of kids. I mean, like, I think in a couple of months we're gonna have 4 students at our office. I think they have to reapply. I think that's still a lot of schools do that. Probably 50-50 now, maybe even less.
I think that's something good for high schoolers to know, though, if they really know they want to do physical therapy, that to look for schools that are a 7-year.
It's so much
is it 6
easier.
or 7?
I think a lot of schools now do you can do it in 6 or 7. A lot of it is
but
how
either
you
way,
wanna,
you apply one time and you're straight through.
Well, and that's, you know, going off of that, I remember at Cortland, at least with their athletic training program, you had to do your, you know, 2 or 3 years, and then you had to get accepted into the program for athletic training. And if you didn't, you got to change your major.
Yeah, that's why I didn't want to even think about applying to places that I had to reapply.
Right.
Because that was something I knew out of the gate. I was like, I don't want to have to work really hard, compete again for a very select piece of a pie. I like the idea that as long as I sustain myself and do well and you know, kind of meet the metrics they need for me, then I'll keep down this path.
You'll progress.
Yeah, I think it was unique when I was there because I was at the time when the transitional doctorate existed. So it
was a master's before.
So I was in a program in the time of like the profession where I could have practiced with just my master's. The year below me was the last chance of that. So I was like the second away from like having to be forced to do a doctorate. So I had a couple of my classmates who, once we got our master's degree, went out and worked. And I was like, well, if in 2 years everyone else is going to have their doctorate, why don't I just do this a little bit longer? And the way Ithaca worked, it was super fast. It was extremely tough at the years I was there. The summer of my sophomore year, I was doing cadaver lab. The summer of my junior year, I was on my first clinical. I was treating patients as a 21-year-old. And then I was in my like grad school, what is now probably like a lot of kids like third or fourth year was like my third year. So I was like, everything moved fast. Because you could graduate with your master's, and Ithaca, I think at the time was probably a very like well reputable, and I think still is a very reputable PT program. But at the end of my 5 years, all I needed was 10 weeks extra to get my doctorate. So I got my doctorate in 5 years and 10 weeks. We had like one vacation in those like 5 years, maybe 2. It was the summer of my freshman year and the summer between my 4th and 5th years were the only summers I had. And then a lot of it was, you know, my summers were spent on clinicals. My winters were spent on clinicals. Some of the springs were. So we didn't have a lot of time. It was pretty much like, you're in that program, go. And I can remember even my recruiting trip for baseball at Ithaca, Coach Valceni was like, you shouldn't be a physical therapist. If you want to play baseball here, be a PE teacher. And so that was a huge part.
Did you play
Yeah.
all 4 years?
No, I played my freshman year, and I was on the team for a little as a sophomore, and then I just kept getting hurt. My whole like life was like a series of just like unfortunate injury events. When I was a sophomore, so locally I played, on my like the Bethlehem Mickey Mantle and a couple other teams, and the Taos Troy Dodgers for a while. And sophomore year, I was very lucky to be a very good athlete for a long time, and so I was getting recruited by a couple spots. And the summer, it was my sophomore year, I was on varsity. I was starting on varsity, and I tore my shoulder, tore my labrum. So I missed like most of the season playing with the Dodgers in the summer. Dove for a ball, like my probably sixth game back. I dove for a ball, broke my hand in 5 spots. My glove hand got caught in a divot, snapped my finger back, and broke my metacarpal in 5 spots.
How old were you?
It was my sophomore year of high school into my junior, so I was 16, 17 years old. And so, yeah, 16 probably makes sense then. And then, like when I was 13, I got hit with a pitch playing on some elite team by some kid from Niskayuna who threw heat and hit me dead on the bone, broke my elbow. So 13, break my elbow. Sophomore year, I broke my labrum, and then even before that, it was a broken wrist playing football. Like just dove. I was playing linebacker. I dove playing goal line defense, and my safety came across, hit his helmet, broke my wrist. So in like a 5-year span, I broke both my wrists, my left hand in 5 spots, tore my shoulder. I've had 7 broken noses. I've tore my knee.
Where's the broken noses come from?
Just dumb luck. Once I was sliding into second with a double play. A kid came low, threw it right at my face.
Ow.
That
That sounds
stunk.
fucking
That
painful.
one was painful. And another time, ball bounced. You want to talk about dumb luck? I hit the ball. It goes right off the plate, back in my face.
This all started because you were the 1 million.
Oh, don't you dare!
This is
$1 million
a
and one.
million
This is
and
the
one.
curse, man. This is a
Million
million and one
and one.
curse.
It's the baseball curse, bro.
It's the Hall of Fame curse. It's
know?
real. It's real. Kids don't go. Don't go to the Hall of Fame. It's a place where nightmares begin.
That's wild, man.
Yeah, but that's actually what got me into physical
I was about
therapy.
to just ask that.
That was the question, man.
When we have
Ask
countless
away.
kids.
Ask me.
Is that what got you?
Yes, it
into
is. No, I hated physical therapy, to be honest with you. As a younger kid, because I'd rolled my ankle a bunch, I'd hurt myself a ton, I was in and out of physical therapy, and I was a good kid, so I listened to them, and I did exactly what they asked me to do, but I just felt a lot of times like I was just pushed through a mill. I can remember one time I was playing basketball, probably in middle school, and I was playing on some AAU teams, and rolled my ankle pretty bad, so I was in therapy, and I remember at this place local to where I was at the time, it's no longer there, I'd show up, and the first eval was a really good session, but it kind of progressed from there, kind of downward. And this was like my experience for years with therapy. Was I went, and the second one was like, okay, here's your exercises, go ahead and do them. And I was a young athlete, it wasn't hard to follow directions. So they'd give me a band, and here's your band exercises on your ankle, and they'd walk away. Right? And I'd do them alone for a while, and I'd sit there on the table, and I'd go, I'm done. Okay, what do I do? 10 minutes go by, they come over, okay, how'd those go? Oh, well, no problem. All right, let's do this and this and this. They'd maybe get me on a trampoline as I was progressing further. They'd do a couple ball tosses, and at the end, they'd be like, all right, go in the hot tub room, and put your foot in the whirlpool. And after that, come on out and let me know how you're doing. And then they'd kind of go, here's your next thing, here's your ultrasound, put it on your ankle. The next time I'd go in, a different person would be there. They'd take my chart, and they'd go, what'd you do last time? Okay, I tell them what I did, and they'd go, here's your stuff, go ahead and do it. Let me know if you need me. Okay, so I'd do my entire session alone, no, relationship building, no actual information, no even tactile cue to understand if I was doing things right. I think they probably just assumed I'm a young 13-year-old kid who's going to get better if I just do something right, which is a terrible. I know now as a good PT, I think that's the worst way to do it, because you're going to learn a lot of bad behaviors and a lot of bad movement patterns, and you're going to ingrain that bad stuff wrong. But anyway, it wasn't until I tore my shoulder that I went to the Bone and Joint Center, and I think it was Dr. Alley or Dr. Alfred tell me, there's 2 ways you can do this.
Shout out Dr. Alley. He fixed my arm when I broke it.
Yeah,
He's the man.
He was Dr. Alley. I know was the guy I saw for my elbow. And when I saw him, he was like, you can either do it surgically or non-surgically. And I was like, well, I'm about to play in the summer for the Dodgers. And that was my first year, I think, even with the Dodgers. So I was like, I knew them as the kind of preeminent baseball squad in the area that at the time, at least, that's what they were. And I probably still hold a little bit of credibility. And so I was like, I want to play on that team. I can't miss it. And I know if I get surgery, I'll miss it. So if you're telling me I can do it this way, so he's like, all right, you're going to go downstairs into Nicola Physical Therapy, and you're going to go see our guy Jay. And it was Jay Peacock. So I go and I saw Jay, and he kind of like was the PT. I actually wrote my college essay about him.
Shout out Jay Peacock. He's great. He's good friends with my Uncle Dean, who I talked to Jay early on in my career when I was just getting into this, and he like didn't know who I was, and I think emailed me back. So pretty cool. And his daughter trains here too. So great guy.
He's super, and he made it. He made it fun. He made it enjoyable. But I believe this still is. I think he genuinely cared about me getting better, and it wasn't about filling a quota or a number. I think he cared about Evan. And in that moment, I was like, "This is awesome. It was so fun." I thought I wanted to be a PT from then on. And I remember I saw him at a presentation that Dr. Das gave years ago about Little League throwing. I went to the Bone and Joint Center and I watched this. It was about I think Little League elbow or Little League shoulder or something like that. Or just throwing mechanics, and he got up and talked. And I remember after I waited and I was like nervous to meet my idol. And he's just a local guy, local PT. But I remember I went up to him, I shook his hand, and I was like, this is going to sound weird, but I'm a PT because of you. And I wrote my essay about you, and he was like, I don't know what I did, and he was funny about it. He was like, I'm sorry. And I was like, no, this is a great thing. This is a great thing. But so that was my experience. That's what got me in. And after that, I was like, oh my God, this is what PT could be. It wasn't the bad stuff. It was the good stuff. I remember modeling, trying to model myself about now, and taking my good mentors at Excel. My old boss, Alan Palmer, is amazing. Still talk with him to this day. I went to his stepson's wedding. It was, we still hang out. And those are the people I reflect on from my youth and my younger years that made me kind of be the PT I wanted to be.
That's awesome.
Yeah, getting good mentors is huge. I think that's another piece of advice for younger kids getting into the field is it's tough now. Student loans are heavy, right? For the most part, most of us are coming out of college in significant debt, and you want to go get as big of a paycheck as possible right away. But finding somewhere with really good mentors is really important, just to learn from, watch how people operate, pick their brain, and tap into their network. Right. Because in the long run and playing the long game of life, that's going to help you excel a lot more than going to somewhere where maybe doesn't have those avenues or those people to take a little bit of a fatter paycheck early on.
So you went to, you went to Cortland, yep. You went to Springfield.
I went to Springfield.
I always wonder now people ask me where would you go, Evan, if you were a student now? And I said, well, first off, I couldn't afford it the way it costs now.
Right.
And one of my roommates in college and one of my best friends from my college years, and who I still am close with, Terry Phillips, who's the PT for Driveline out in Seattle. So he's obviously connected in this baseball world pretty intimately. He jokingly tells every prospective student don't go to a private school, it's stupid. He jokingly hates it so much. He loved his time at Ithaca and he loved his experience, but I think he talks about it. He's like, you can learn a ton without having to spend a ton of money. Right. But I always wonder, that's my personal experiences. What's your guys' experiences of how to tell kids to get in that world? Do you tell them to go to a certain college, a school, or is it just good somewhere, plug in and train?
I'll speak first. I got lucky because I went to Springfield because they had exercise science. I like to work out. Smaller school. I was going to be able to play baseball right away. So it met all of my criteria. I didn't know shit about financials, nothing. I wish I knew more about that back then, but that's in the past and I didn't. I got lucky because I had a professor there, Dr. Pat Davidson, who's not there anymore, but he's big in the private sector now in strength and conditioning. But I remember I had a class, it was exercise prescription for special populations. And this guy's a rebel, a tough guy, rebel, super smart though. And first day of that class, he goes, I know you're all here, we're juniors. I know you're all here to learn about special populations. It was a mandatory class for our major. He goes, that's not going to help you get a job. Close the textbook. He's like, here's what I'm going to teach you. And he basically laid out how Mike Boyle runs his business, how Mike Boyle structures programming, how to build rapport, how to do like sales. Like he mapped all that out, how to run a training session effectively. And then through him kind of opening me up to that and then tapping into his knowledge and his network is what, and also other people, this guy Sam Sturgis who helped connect me with Cressy's. So it's all about the people and the networks.
And for me, definitely wouldn't change. Like I was probably still would have went to Cortland. And I've had countless conversations like with kids about college in here because for me, I went into college as a phys ed major. I changed my major 2.5 years into school. I had a friend that changed his major twice before he was a junior. Went from biology to phys ed to kinesiology, which is what both me and him graduated with. So, and I tell the kids, like, the only thing that I would have taken more into account was playing football. I was like, I loved football, but I didn't have to play for me to be happy at a school. So that's the only thing that I would have probably looked a little bit more into. But as far as like going to Cortland and all that, I don't think that there would have been a difference for me. There was my exercise physiology class. When I took that in the winter, and the way I feel really bad because I can't remember the professor's name, but the way he taught and everything, like that class is supposed to be fucking hard. I aced that class, and like I'm terrible at studying, terrible at taking notes, like always have been, like probably always will be, like, and I got an A in that class. And it was one of those moments when I was taking that class, I was like, wow, I really love this shit. And then when, like, you know, years down the line after I graduated, I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. And then I was helping people at the gym. Just like randomly people would ask me questions. And I'm like, wow, I really like this. I like being in the gym. Like, let me do this. And then obviously as time goes on, I've come to where I am now. But for me, it's like, when I went to Cortland, and I said this to one of the girls in here today, this week, because she was talking to me and a couple other kids in here about, you know, how to choose your school and choose college and know what's right for you. And I'm like, when you go on a college visit and you go, especially if you want to play sport, you'll know after talking to the coach, walking on the campus, you will feel that that's the right spot. You'll feel it.
Do you think you need to go though? Like in PT, you need a PT school to go to a PT degree to sit for a license exam. I don't know how many trainers I've met who have different avenues. They don't do exercise phys. They don't do all this, and like that's the part that always I think if I were to ever say like I think the clarity that needs to come is what do you need to get to a certain point, because that's like the hardest thing sometimes I think for our career.
This field needs licensure. I mean, I don't know how that works. It's the Wild West because you can take a weekend course and be a trainer
and then grow
and the consumer may not be educated enough to know the difference between somebody like us and somebody that just took a weekend course. Now, when you go there, you get the experience of the training session and the product, and if you are a educated consumer, you'll feel it and you'll understand it. But this is a tough field because you need to take a licensure exam. You need to take a boards. Athletic trainers need to take a boards. Teachers need to take a boards. But this field doesn't have that.
There's definitely got to be something like that.
It's the trickiest thing. I think that's when I have patients of mine that are like, oh, I see a trainer. I go, where are you going? And I don't mean this negatively. Vent Fitness. There are a lot of great trainers that start at Vent Fitness, and I'm not trying to take anything away from a place like that. And I'll go, well, goodness gracious, like what is their background? Like, what do they even are they in school? Are they just?
Yeah, it's just like you just don't know what you're going to get because there's no quality control. Now, I love the guys on our team because of their diverse backgrounds. Dan spent a lot of time one-on-one working at Vent Fitness and doing one-on-one pitching lessons, so I knew that he could hold conversation and manage time in a training session with one person and do sales. Paul came from building up a client roster in New York City, managing other trainers, and he worked in retail in different places. And I love that because I know he understands how a small business runs. So it's like I love those different components that help in here. But it is a Wild West because there is no licensure, there is no overarching.
I think that if you want to talk about, like going back to what we talked about earlier, like team approach, I think the hardest thing sometimes for people in our career, you know, in our field is PTs or MDs even, is to find that person you can trust. And that comes often with like a trial by fire. You'd say, like, okay, let me send you to someone, and I might know this group, or I might have met someone, and I'm going to send you there, and it's going to be an experience for me as much as anything, or I'll network, I'll market, I'll get out there and I'll meet you. But like there have been people who I know and I trust, and when I hear their story, I'm like, holy crap, you didn't study this? Like, you just learned it along the way, or you put yourself into a part where maybe you spent a lot of time and educated yourself, and there's a lot of value in that. But when I hear that, I'm always impressed at times, like, hey, you do it the right way, and I applaud you because you didn't have to.
Yeah.
You studied it, and you cared enough to actually invest the time to make yourself better, and you studied and cared. But I have to believe that you probably all get more frustrated than I do about this, because you talk about there's not a lot of educated consumers in any field, in any market, right? People enter the PT world and they don't know what's good, bad, or indifferent. And, there's different ways. And I know that, you guys are really tight with someone like Suarez, who does it, the cash route, and I do it the insurance route.
Both different, but both work.
Both work.
And I mean, not to toot my horn, but I'm sure you see value in both ways.
100%.
You've seen he's a great PT. His reputation precedes him, and I know him professionally. I wish I got to know the guy more personally.
We
He
should
seems like
have a
great guy.
podcast with both of you on.
Oh, that'd be fun.
I think it'd be great.
Yeah.
That'd be super fun. I'd love to do it.
Let's note that down, for sure.
But I think that's like a cool opportunity for you, because you can see how, there's maybe two people who do it very vastly differently, who get different, maybe not different results, similar results, but do it different ways.
Like it's it comes from
fork in the road comes together.
Comes together for sure. Okay, since we're on this though, so when he talked about insurance, he talked about sometimes he felt like he could get pigeonholed or stuck with it. Do you ever feel like that, or you feel like you're able to operate, do what you need to do, and be good?
I think that going the way that I go with like accepting insurances, the pigeonhole comes not because of like a script or something like that. Like, I think a lot of times I tell everyone, like, a script is just a ticket to the door, and it's up to me to determine what you need with that ticket.
Yeah.
But and that's how I honestly approach it. Like, you come in with neck pain, and some of this also comes from the opportunity of having doctors who trust me, and I'll get just the silliest scripts with the silliest diagnoses. The diagnosis isn't a diagnosis, it's just a pain. Pain in shoulder. Well, what the hell does that mean? It's not a diagnosis, that's a symptom. Right. But they come in with that quote, that diagnosis. But I get to work with them. The pigeonhole comes when certain insurances tell me I only get 4 visits to see them. And then I have to make a really challenging decision to tell a patient, like, you got 4 visits with me. How do we want to do this? I still operate a business, as sad as that sometimes has to sound. I have payroll, I have lights to keep on, and I wish I could do this at a really low cost, but with all that in mind, I'll sometimes, behind the scenes, like, so, okay, how do we make this happen? And we do have a private pay rate, and we try to educate patients on how, there's the in-network costs, out-of-network costs, and how that kind of goes.
So you do offer that if someone needs extra treatment because they only get 4 visits?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that's the thing, I don't get, when you are contracted with an insurance company, you are mandatorily, you have to take those payments that they accept, but you also have to take their copays. For example, let's use CDPHP as an example. If your copay is $50 and you say, I can't pay that, and I say, oh, I'll only take 25. Well, if that ever got out and they found out that I'm only accepting 25, they look at it and say, let's say the total value of a full treatment is, let's say $100, and their copay is 50, and they say, I'll only pay 25, and I say, sure, no problem. And all of a sudden CDPHP finds that out. They'll go, oh, you're fine with taking just 75? We'll reduce all of your payments down to $75, because that's what you're telling us you want. And I'll go, no, that's why I can't do that. So we don't do that. But what we do offer is, hey, when your insurance either doesn't cover something or it runs out, I have a private pay rate, and that private pay rate is X. And it's not through the insurance. I don't bill through the insurance because I can't.
Right.
But I know what you need. And even that, at that point, your insurance runs out, we can kind of decide together what that number looks like, based off of where you are in your programming, what you need. If you're already at the point where maybe you're coming here, you're coming to CDSF. Great. I only need to see you this often. I know that the things I'm working on and Mike are parallel, so I know what your circumstances are. So that's where the pigeonhole comes in. Mm-hmm. The challenge, I think, of the way that we both kind of look at it, like a private pay PT and an insurance acceptor, is the value of what I look at, of what I believe I'm valued at, and how insurances value PTs. And insurances as a whole do not value almost any healthcare practitioner. I'd even say probably the MD route, even though they get paid a lot of money to do the surgeries and the assessments. I don't think that they get valued the way they probably should, and I think that's why they have to push this extraordinarily silly volume. They're seeing 60 people a day.
Right.
So if I was able to actually decide how insurance is paid us, I think we'd all agree that insurances are fine to a point, but doing the private pay route gets you a great amount of autonomy and time with people. What I do with my staff and my people is I try to tell my staff, I'm never going to give you a quota, I'm never going to give you a value. There's a reality to what I know I need, and I'm never going to tell you what that is until you fall well below that threshold. But we give our staff if you don't want to double someone, you get an hour with them, go ahead, tell me you need an hour with that person, take an hour with that person. I don't care, because the word that I'm in, it's the health care. Care is the word that I accentuate, not the health. The health comes with the care, but if you don't care about someone, the health can't be there. So I don't push a quota. There's no doubt about it that I tend to see probably a large volume of people, and there's no doubt that I definitely see the way that some people might look at it as like the wrong way to do PT. Of like, I'll see 2 people at a time, and I'm not pretending that it's the greatest way to do it. It's not. If we all had our druthers, we'd all see 1 patient an hour, and that's where the cash PT route. What I actually love about them is I think that they're on like the forefront of a battleground. They help to identify what we should be valued at, and I think that's the greatest thing is we have someone out there who's helping us go, that's what we should be paid. And if you want to help people kind of get better, then that's what we should be doing with them. We should be spending an hour plus maybe with them, or whatever you determine as a practitioner. But it's a tricky road. It's not perfect. It's not. We do it really well at our office, and our company really runs a model where it doesn't overflow into this like aggressive mill where you're just given a sheet of paper and it's go do what you want. I have people that are in my office for 60 to 90 minutes. Now, if I had my druthers, that 70-minute patient would probably be reduced down to 40.
That happens though. What's the nature of in here too?
Well, and you brought it up like care. The whole time you were talking there, like that's what I was thinking of. I'm like, you offer that private pay because you care. It's called that level of care. Not all insurance-based PTs, I'm sure, offer a private pay option once you run out of insurance. But the fact that you do that just speaks to, again, that level of care that you have for your clients, your patients, and understanding what they need, and then relaying that information to them too. Like, you do a good job with that, because it's like, okay, I know what you need. This is what you got to do. And like you said, maybe like they're coming here and doing some stuff. You're like, okay, you only need to see me twice a month.
Yeah.
That's it.
I had a patient just yesterday had to cancel her appointments with me because she wasn't able to afford PT. And her copay is not extravagant from my perspective, but I'm not that person. Her circumstances obviously dictate that's the case. That's where I think that the important thing is to make sure that there is availability for both, because I can't imagine that same person who I've only seen a few times
Going to a cash-based, and
I don't know what they all charge, and I'm sure there's differences in it all, but an area like this is so heavily ingrained in the insurance world. The value of what certain jobs and careers offer, and what your actual take-home pay is versus cost of living. There's a market for that, but I think for me to have access to the people who need care, I think that's why I choose to do it that way. But again, I think that we all agree that it's if we all had our druthers, we'd all see you trained the same way I would love to treat. You'd love to train probably more one-on-one with someone all the time. That's the perfect model.
Right.
It's just impractical for everybody, and I think that's the hard part.
That's like with our semi-private, right? Like we offer one-on-one, but semi-private can drop the price point down per session. We can make more money per hour than we could with one person, and for the mental health of all of us, it's way better.
Yeah, like Mike and I have talked about it before. Like, he asked me, do I want to take on more one-on-one clients? And I was like, no.
Yeah,
I was like, I enjoy the group because you never have that dead silence. I get to interact with more people, and I get to help more people.
No doubt.
And like, that's how I view it. And like, that's how, like, when we had Pat on, or like I've talked to other people about it, it's like, to me, like, insurance-based PT is like semi-private training, and cash-based PT is more like that one-on-one training.
Yeah.
Now, in insurance-based, you can get, it's like here, like there's times people walk in, they're the only one here. They're going to get one-on-one treatment because they're literally the only one here. So I'm sure there's times where in an insurance-based, like, or like you said, you have a PT that comes to you and says, I need to spend an hour with this person. You're like, all right, you spend an hour with them, we'll figure out everything else.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the beauty of, again, you being as good as you are at what you do and caring about the people that you care about, that you have. And it reflects in obviously you being able to expand to 3 locations, possibly a 4th. Like,
You and your staff, like whether
know.
I'm emailing with Jenny, with Nick, like anybody, like we're always on the same page. It's easy to communicate. It's easy to get the patient on board.
Yeah.
It's just a testament to go 3 locations with people that care.
Yeah.
They care about people's health and care about growing your business and helping people get better and educating them.
No doubt. No doubt. It's fun. It's fun. I think that my favorite thing is I get to tell people, I get to work with people all day. I could never sit behind a desk.
Never.
I couldn't sit like this for a long time just doing nothing. I could talk to you guys about this all night. We could do this till midnight if we wanted, but
it's a long ass podcast.
yeah,
This is our longest one yet.
This is the longest
Where
one
we at?
yet.
Oof. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah,
Hey, kudos. Cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers.
I know you guys got empty
I'm
glasses,
empty,
so
but-
I'm empty. But,
Cheers.
I'll,
Cheers.
I'll,
Good
I'll
job.
cheers your
Good job.
almost empty
Slime.
beer.
Empty.
Almost empty
No,
beer.
but
though.
this has been fantastic. It's probably more than we've talked in 3 years all combined because
No doubt.
everything's just shuffling.
No
But
doubt.
it's so much fun. Let the people know where they can find
No doubt.
Capital Area, please.
Yeah, so our flagship office is in Malta on Exit 12 in Parade Ground Village. That's where myself, Andrew, Jenny Macinas, Nick Koser, Brian Guild, and Amanda Kokozo all are in our Queensberry office, run by Tori Teresi, and then we have Drew Bishop up there. Our Latham office is kind of an oddball right now. We have some people in flux, so right now we're kind of shipping some of our staff kind of around and more so our patients up here, but that's going to be kind of up and running a little bit more robust soon. But that's in our Latham office, so we got those 3 locations. Keep on the website in the next month. I think you'll see some big things from our company happening soon. We have some awesome relationships with Sage colleges, so you'll see some things that are coming out with them in the next couple months, and a couple things that are happening in the groundwork that I wish I could disclose on the podcast, but I can't. So we'll be doing some fun things, but yeah, come see us, capitalareapt.com. We're open 7 to 7 Monday through Thursday, 7 to 5 on Fridays, accepting all insurances, all the boring stuff you need to know. But more importantly, we really genuinely care about our people, and I think that's the most important thing to kind of take away is we care. We really do our best to try to help you along the way, and you'll enjoy it while you're there too. You'll get a laugh.
You guys have been an incredible asset to us since we've opened and helped us just keep people moving through the system in the right way and having fun and learning, and I appreciate it a ton, especially coming to the area with nothing and knowing nobody and just really helping me, being a part and helping me grow a business and make a living and live my life, man. So I appreciate it.
I appreciate you guys.
I appreciate
you guys
it a
are
lot,
great.
man.
You guys
Thank
are
you,
great.
Evan.
Thank you.
We'll do this again, and apparently this podcast is over. So
Yeah.
appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. Catch you
Thanks,
next
guys.
time.
That was a good
Yeah.
one.